To the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, thank you for joining us, and for everyone at home, thank you for watching. Looking for a motion here.
Motion to open the public hearing. Second.
Elliot's the second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, next item on the agenda. Town, yes. Elliot.
Somebody at home watching this, and they say that people are not close enough to the mic. You're doing good, but, when the microphone...
Am I talking too loud, Elliot? Okay, so
We also got a message from our secretary. She couldn't hear half of it.
So keep that in mind. Make sure your mics are on. Speak loudly for other people in the room, and hopefully everyone at home will hear us. And exactly, just like that. Let's get this done. So
Talk like you're angry.
next item on the agenda: Town Budget, Public Health, which is Article 8, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget.
And it's page 59.
Page 59. Thank you, Mr. Anzavino.
My pleasure. How are you, Janice? Oh, and could everybody please silence their cell phones?
Whenever you're
I
ready.
did
Thank
mine
you.
last night and then it started ringing.
Good evening, Denise Bruce with the Stoughton Public Health Association and Human Services. Just wanted to say,
Start again.
thank you. Okay. Denise Bruce, the Director of Stoughton Public Health and Human Services. We're here tonight to talk about the public health budget and a little bit about what we do. So we, as you probably know, we're the VNA and the Public Health Office. And
Somebody help that man.
And as many of you know, we were very busy during COVID.
He's not very technical, I think. He's just new to cell phones, honest. I know him. He's just new with cell phones.
Don't make fun of him, that's his pacemaker.
Please continue.
Oh, okay. So,
Sorry, Janice.
that's okay. So as many of you know, I think you do know what we do. We are public health, as in doing public health activities with following any communicable diseases. And of course, we were so busy with COVID, and thank goodness that's all improving. And the emergency is going to be ending. The public health emergency is set to end on May 11th. Thank goodness.
Nobody told her it ended a year and a half ago.
I know. And so we're busy with the public health, but we're, of course, looking at the B&A portion of our department, which is the skilled services to residents and touching towns for, to provide skilled nursing, skilled occupational therapy, skilled physical therapy, social work, and speech therapy. So we did experience during the pandemic a little change in how things were going operationally because of obvious reasons. A lot of people not going in the hospital, a lot of people not accepting home visits. Things have slowly been returning, and our census is up and down. We have been very active in providing our services, and we have gotten excellent patient satisfaction surveys, and we are just happy to be still doing what we're doing. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about our services?
Medicare changes.
Oh, yes, and one big thing was in 2020, when the pandemic hit, Medicare also changed up their reimbursement, their reimbursements, protocols, not protocols, but they changed up their, from a different type of, wasn't fee-for-service, it wasn't PPS, but they went to something called patient-driven grouping models. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with when, like, The hospitals changed up theirs into like a diagnosis-related reimbursement model. Well, they changed it. It came out January 1st, 2020. And they have essentially split up our reimbursements into two sections. And effectively, for some patients, it can actually affect the reimbursements by cutting them in half. It's very complicated. There's 432 different diagnoses and formulas that a patient can have, so it's not like you can pick up a patient and say, this person is we're gonna be getting this much money. It's very complex with many factors, and obviously, when they change their reimbursement formula, it's never usually on the side of us getting more money. So we have felt that effect. We're still trying to work with, like, how we can best navigate these changes. And our staff are being trained, we're always training on this, and but our most important thing is that people receive what they need to have. And, you know, we try to be cost-effective, but we're here to provide a service to our residents, and we're doing a great job with that, but it is tough with these reimbursement changes.
Hold on. Any questions or comments from the committee on this? Mark?
My question's on your in-service training and education. In FY 2022, you only spent $573, and now you're asking for $4,000.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mark. I did increase it only because this year, there was also another change from Medicare to something called this assessment form, and we're trying to get everybody certified in that, so it's usually, the training is usually a 2-day training, and then they get certified. So I wanted to be able to send our staff to be able to attend that.
Okay, good.
And it is all related to the new, it's called Oasis E, which is a outcome data assessment and data collection, and it's what drives all of your reimbursements. They take this assessment, and it goes into like a formula, and that's how they come up with one of those 432 payments for a patient. So it's not easy, and this assessment drives patient outcomes, our care plans, and ultimately our reimbursements.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, training is in every department, but I like that there is a jump. Hopefully you use it.
All right, thank you for that question, Mark. Do we have any other questions, comments on this? Dave? Oh, nope, sorry. Bob?
Yeah, what other towns do we service?
Just our bordering towns, so it would be Avon, Randolph, Brockton, Easton, Sharon, Hampton.
Okay. And I remember years past, you were trying to get in with the other healthcare providers. Did we ever have any luck with that as far as,
Insurances?
yes?
Yeah, we actually have picked up a few from, I think, the last time we had talked. When I first started with as a director, was basically Medicare, Medicaid. Now we
Right.
take Aetna, we take United Health, we
Oh, okay.
take HPI,
Beautiful,
Tough Senior Plan.
beautiful.
So we are expanding our insurances.
That's good to hear. And then my last question is, can you just explain to me what the Medicare payback is?
That has been a line that's been in there ever since I've been here, and that's because Medicare frequently does audits of your records, and they can actually fine you. We've never had to use it. And we've also had that line, one time we used it for a company to come in and actually go through and show us how we could better, they kind of did a little training with us so that it was for our audits, so we have used it for that too. But we just came through an audit a couple of months ago for 20 records, and we went over them with a fine-tooth comb, and they all did get passed, but
Beautiful. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. That's all I have.
John, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I noticed you have the same amount of employees, but the salary line went down. Have you had people leave and have newer people, or?
we have, of course, our per diem line is built into the public health nurses. And we were using less per diem staff. We had several per diem nurses. We basically, right now, have one. We had a couple that retired. So is that the line that went down in the public health nurses?
Yeah, you have 4.3 full-time with 10 employees, but it went down 5.6%.
Okay, we were just, when I calculated it out, I realized we weren't using quite as much per diem.
Okay, thank you.
Jess, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Janice. Good to see you, and thank you for everything you've done over the past few years.
Pleasure.
Yeah. My question is about the sort of general trends with the public health, because I think probably since the time I started on Finance Committee, you always end up in the plus. And I think this is the first time I've ever seen you come to us needing a subsidy. And in light of the fact that it's with actually being able to take on other insurances, and, the subsidy is small, but only because of the ARPA funding. I'm just wondering what you see and what we should be prepared for. And you've done a great job of warning us of the trends up to this point, but I'm wondering, should we be predicting even worse things to come in the years ahead?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this new reimbursement model. It is, and I know for all agencies, it's really having people do the same with less reimbursement. I'm hoping that we can, one, get more patients. That's why I'm happy, that we can accept more insurances. But it's kind of ebbs and flows, the caseload. We basically only have 2 nurses on every day. We don't have a huge staff of nurses. And then we have our per diem therapists. But we are really trying to target, we're doing a lot of marketing. We have a meet and greet lined up with the hospital. But everything that's affected in the industry, we're like the trickle down. If the hospitals are having an issue, then the referrals aren't coming in. So it's, especially, obviously, the recovery from COVID. But even one of our local skilled nursing facilities had a floor shut down. So when that floor shuts down, we're not getting as many referrals because they don't have as many patients. And the whole industry right now, I think, healthcare is going through a little bit of a difficult time. Insurances, as you can see, even from, won't get into it, but town insurances, you can see how things are definitely being impacted. And we're seriously trying to look at all avenues of being the most cost-effective. A lot of it, on these trainings, is how you answer the patient-driven grouping model is so that you answer these questions accurately. You don't fudge on them, your assessment, but you have to have keen assessments to get the most accurate information on those assessment forms to get the most reimbursement. And I'm not sure, I really hope that we can gather it up a little bit, but, we're going to put all our efforts in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a follow-up to that question, Janice and I and Mark have spent a lot of time in the last couple of months looking at this purely as a business model with respect to its sustainability. And unlike water, sewer, solid waste, health insurance that can be fixed with an appropriate and fair rate increase, we can't do that here. The pipeline of funding is almost exclusively Medicare, or at least a substantial portion of it. The changes that are being made are even affecting the for-profit visiting nurses. If you remove the indirect costs that we allocate to this business because it's a enterprise fund, the subsidy is about under $50,000, probably $45,000. And the way the Board of Selectmen, or at least most of the Board of Selectmen who I've sought their advice and input, is they look at it and say, we're serving the seniors of the town. Is a $50,000 subsidy worth it for the value that we're getting for the seniors who are in need? And the answer, of course, has been almost across the board, yes. Based upon what I've picked up from looking at this as a business, it will be very difficult to break even as long as it's an enterprise fund and being assessed a $250,000 a year indirect cost allocation. So the real question we're going to raise at the Finance Summit this post-Labor Day is, should this be an enterprise fund? And what is our appetite for a subsidy, given the value that the VNA is bringing to the citizens of Stoughton? I think that's got to be a collaborative decision between FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. It is a policy decision, that's their purview, but it's a financial impact decision. I think if we all understand the value versus the expense, we'll reach an understanding as to what to expect from this as a business unit. We know what to expect because of the quality work they're doing and the feedback we're getting from citizens, but I think we have to have a meeting of the minds as to what our expectations are as a business unit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Coulter. Do we have any other questions? John, you have something?
I just want to say, in the 16 years I've been involved with the town government, this is the first time I've seen the public health come and needing a subsidy. First time. And, you know, for the same 16 years I've been doing this, we had a golf club that last year finally broke the mold and didn't need a subsidy. So I think given a subsidy for this, in my opinion, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you got to keep it going. I understand we have ARPA funds this year, but I can't see taking the service away. It's a valuable service, and not many towns can actually offer this service the way our town does.
I certainly agree.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Diane, you have something?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank Janice. She's quite helpful when anyone calls. It's a wonderful program. But two things. Number one, do we have a Medicaid billing company that does all, or are you still doing it in-house?
In-house.
Okay. Have you ever thought about maybe bringing someone in to look, especially with the new regulations? Because that's what we have here.
Well,
And
the billing isn't really, the billing we do well, and we get our payments back well. It's really more in our documentation, so we don't get denied, and it all does lie in with that patient assessment and providing appropriate services for whatever that patient needs without, I mean, it's utilization of services without going over the top. Like, it's changed so much since I first started. When I first started, people were getting 2 times a day home health aid indefinitely, and it got paid for. Now you're lucky if you get an hour twice a week from a home health aid covered. I mean, things have changed. It's like, I always compare it to the days when you could go in the hospital and stay in the hospital for a week after having a baby.
Right.
And now you're lucky if you're in overnight. You know, it's like things just have gotten whittled down so much and try to get so cost effective. But like I always say to the staff, we have to be sure that we're not, the dollars and cents thing isn't in our mind so much when we're going out to see a patient. Yes, we look at it, we kind of do our utilization, but we want to give people what they need. And sometimes reimbursements on that case, like they'll give us a little chunk of money for that assessment. Some people end up going over because during the middle of taking care of them, something may develop and you stay in a little longer than you thought. And then some people, you get that and things heal up quicker and you're out and you've made some extra money on that case. But I would say we have to keep the finances in mind, but it can't be our total driving force when we're caring for a patient.
and kind of the second piece of this, not that I want to offend anyone who is a little older, but a lot of the older people don't go on the website. They don't even know you exist. Have you ever thought to, I don't know, a large postcard or something?
Yes.
Just with the services out to
Yeah,
the town? Would be helpful.
We actually have started doing a little marketing campaign with not just our referral sources, but we have done some newsletters. We've done, one of our nurses is going to elderly housings and giving educational topics and talking to them, more visibility. And we're talking about putting something in, because most people do read the Suburban Shopper, so we'll put it there because that is where everybody goes and looks.
We all miss that penny saver once a week.
Oh.
You're welcome. Yes, Mr. Tisdale?
Just a quick point or two. And it's funny, but it really makes a point. The last couple weeks, we've been huddled in Janice's office, building, engineering, Board of Health, Conservation Commission, and it's been great, but such a disruption, right? Probably more to them than us, but it's because there are so many nurses coming in and out of that door all days long, the conversations, the phone calls, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is purely chaotic in here, you know? So it's a very busy operation over there, but it's been honestly like a joy to work with them. So it's been a good experience. But there's a good analogy. I think I told you yesterday. Maybe it's not a good analogy or not, but there's a lot of departments in this town. Let's just say we'll throw Tom under the bus this time. The town manager department, right? So it's not a department that brings in revenue per se, right? But if you create it as an enterprise account, you'd have to have indirect costs line in there, and there's a calculation Bill does, and maybe it's for his departments, it's $50,000, and he'd be in the red because he has no revenue. So when you actually look at their opera funds and their and their subsidy of $45,000, it's what, $350,000 roughly? But the indirect cost is $286,000. You know, it's not as bad as if you ran it as a normal department, where benefits like health care and things like that are rolled into the other pot, it wouldn't sound so bad. It's just because it's run like an enterprise account, it looks worse than it actually is, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee? Laura, you have anything? Nothing. I have a quick question here. The contract services, what exactly is that?
Yes, that's a line I've been whittling down every year. I take a little bit more off of that, and it's always the one I say if we're going to cut, it can. That's the line that is for our contract services line, basically was used for home health aides. And at one point, we provided a lot of home health aid. We contract out with the company, and we had something called, it was through the Elder Affairs Office. It was the aging access point services, where we basically were getting reimbursed for the health aides. So we contracted out. What we found was the cost of the health aides, it was costing us more to provide the services through HESCO and Old Colony. So we finally have eliminated those contracts because they can get them other places. So it's more like, it was like a supportive services. So, but we still utilize health aides for our Medicare or our insurances, but our usage has gone down dramatically. And it's also our, we have a contract with our physician.
The reason I ask is because the actuals for 22 are 93.53, and then it was budgeted for 79,000 in FY23, and now it's budgeted for 75,000. But I was just asking what it was because the actuals were $9,300 back in 22.
And some of that was still effects of COVID, I think, when people weren't wanting health aides.
Okay, all right, I just thought
But, yes, that's a line that definitely, we used every bit of that money at one time but we would get it back.
Do we know what the actuals are for 23 at this point?
I don't have it with me.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, I'll check with Mr. Rowe. The other question I had is, do we have any major insurance companies out there that we don't have contracts or accreditation with at this point?
Yes, I've tried very hard to get a contract with Blue Cross, and they won't. I've gone through like a third party that's what they do, that they broker you pay them a fee and they broker, and they reached out and they just were like, something we can't be bothered with that small little contract with the town because we have contracts with partners and we have contracts with this one in this area and stuff. So they frankly feel like we're too small for them. But
All right, thank you. Do we have a lot of potential clients that are turned away because of that Blue Cross issue?
occasionally, we do have to turn somebody down for Blue Cross.
All right, I just,
Yeah.
You make referrals.
But we don't, yes. Well, usually when the doctor's office has to call the referral in, And that's how we say, we'll just say, sorry, that's not an insurance, but we want people to utilize their insurance. I mean, we don't want, if somebody had no insurance, we would still go out and assess them. If it was a person in Stoughton and they said, there's a need here, this person has no insurance, we're really concerned, yeah, insurance would not matter. We would go out, we would check them out and see what we could do for them. But when someone has health insurance and a doctor's office is calling it in, and we say, gee, we're sorry, we can't accept Blue Cross, but we know that like another agency probably would take it, and they will say, okay, we'll call,
All right, thank you very much for that.
I have an answer for you.
Thank you, John.
On the last budget report we got from Bill, as of January 31st, the contract services has a available budget now of $68,000. They have encumbered, I'm going to round it off, they've encumbered $6,000 and they've spent $5,000, so.
wrote it down in here, but I would lower it.
So to date, roughly $11,000.
So right now, yeah, right now they've gone about $11,000 and they have 68
That's,
remaining.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr.
Chairman,
Anzavino.
Janice just mentioned,
Yes.
we want to put the numbers where the incentives are. It is a priority to lower that number. So Janice had just said she'd be very open to changing that budget number to match the strategy for lowering that number. So do you have a number in mind, Janice?
well, I've been decreasing it because I always like plan for like, oh, what if we get a zillion patients and they're all needing home health aides? But I would definitely feel comfortable with,
January,
at this
February,
point, like going down to 50,000
No,
and then
there's
see
still-
where we're at from that, or
Whatever you think.
40,000 maybe,
There's still 5 months left, but
So there's 5 months left, so we've gone through 7 months, and Mr. Anzavino, you're saying it's about $11,000?
yeah, I mean,
so far.
rounded off, but
All right.
yeah, they say that this has an available budget of 68, so they've used 11 in 7 months. I mean,
we have had those cases, God forbid, you you get a Medicare patient or whatever, that's a really heavy patient that's going to need a lot of home health aid. We do get, probably not that often, so I would definitely be comfortable by at least like decreasing that by like 20,000 or something, just to
Okay, it just,
give it a,
something to think about anyway.
yeah.
All right,
I'll make
thank
a
you
note
very
of
much
that.
for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on town budget, public health, Article 8, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget? Hearing none. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cynthia Walsh, 296 Park Street. Just two comments. One is, whatever you want to say about seniors, they do watch television. So it might be helpful to have yourself or staff, or maybe even a patient, a former patient who's willing to appear, to film a short 15-minute, 20-minute show. And they will rerun it incessantly. So it's, and the other comment is, previous speaker mentioned experience in town government, and I go back a little further. At one time, these folks had a receipts reserved of over $2 million. And the then town manager convinced town meeting to take that money away to put into the town budget, even though people were warning that these cuts in Medicare and Medicaid were coming. So it's kind of the town, as far as the town goes, it's a self-inflicted wound. We should have listened, and it may not have solved our problem completely, but it would have given her a couple of more years.
I remember it well.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public? Town budget, Article 8, Public Health Association Enterprise Fund Budget. Hearing none, we move to the next item on the agenda, which is Article 26, General Fund Operating Budget, Library, Part A.
Page 45.
Page 45.
That also we also did the article.
Commercial would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know Bob Grove's a big fan of it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 45.
Yes, page 45.
Yeah, that could be cut back a bit.
Cut it down, they might have no subsidy in the fund, general fund. They're only
I
subsidized
know
45
at
right now.
45, you could probably get rid of the subsidy from the general if you cut that back.
Whenever you're ready.
And then she could always.
Thank you. So I'm Christopher McGee, I'm the library director. Most of you are aware of the services we offer at the library. The bulk of our budget is direct library service to the citizens of Stoughton. So most of it is staff, all of whom work directly with Stoughton citizens and programming and materials. So it's a pretty slim budget. I try to keep it down to what we have historically used. So I welcome any questions.
Any questions or comments from the committee on the library budget? Adam, thank you.
Hey, Chris, how are you? Good. Nice to see you. I just want to say it is a very slim budget, so what do you think? I've heard, the past couple of weeks as we've been going through this, I've heard inflation about 8,000 times. So how has inflation affected you? Are we, cutting it too slim? Should we look at anything a little bit further?
Inflation doesn't really affect us all that much. I mean, it affects the library materials lines, the capital outlay line. And, we've been seeing that for years, particularly with ebooks. And since COVID, they've skyrocketed. The use of them has, and that's a big expense for us. That's partly why I added a little bit to that line this time. We do use state aid funds for that as well to supplement the town appropriation. So we always spend quite a bit more than what you see in that town appropriation line for capital outlay. Other than that, library supplies is the other thing. So that's why that line, I kept it the same as it was last year. We have not historically spent $30,000, but because of potential inflation issues, I kept it at that line.
Laura, do you have a question?
I do. So I have two kids in middle school, so they're at that age where they're looking for things to do, on early Thursdays and, in the afternoons. And I feel like every week they're telling me about something amazing that's going on at the library. There's tutoring, there's video game clubs, and I think these programs are really, really important, not just for kids to learn things, but it's a place for them to go to socialize. It's a place for them to go and not get in trouble. Not that I'm assuming kids get in trouble, but not my kids. Boy, I'm going to regret that. But similar to, the previous speaker's question, are we sure that we're making allowances that we can maintain these programs and continue potentially to grow them, because I do see them as, really important things that we should be very proud of, but also really important to our kids.
Yes, thank you very much for that. We do try very hard to give things for citizens of all ages, including those middle school age, something to do, if not every week, multiple times a week sometimes. Our budget line for programming is sufficient. As you can see, we typically do spend right at that, maybe a little over. However, we have historically purchased museum passes and park passes out of that budget line. But the Friends of the Library, the SOLA Support Our Library Association, has agreed last year and then moving forward to fund those. So that provides us a little bit more wiggle room so that if we were to be able to increase programming, we do have the funds for that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Joel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you currently anticipate in the next few fiscal years of any capital improvements or changes you might need for the building?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a new building, so we don't really need any changes, but the building was designed with the intent that it would have a generator.
Oh, the emergency generator system.
Yes,
Oh,
the
yeah.
emergency generator. I think you're aware of.
I'm very aware of it, yes.
So that will be something that we would like to have, and we're partnering with the fire department to potentially try to get that within the next few years.
In that regard, we were talking earlier about appropriations that supposedly come to an end. The library appropriation, I think, is still open, and I think there's only about $34,000 left in it, so,
That is correct.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, mine has to go back to the materials and the actual books. I know my family, and I've heard it from others, that the book selection is not that great. They've actually gone to Canton because a lot of times it's like, oh, well, you can order it and we'll get it in 2 or 3 days, or, you know, is there something going on to increase our books or book selection or
I mean, we purchase
materials?
books all the time. So I mean, we have new books coming in every day, almost, definitely every week. But we can't possibly meet the needs of a town the size of Stoughton. No library can, which is why we have those programs where we can borrow from other libraries in our network. That's part of what our network fees pay for. That's one of our line items. So usually we can get them very quickly within a very short turnaround. But we always are purchasing, and if you have specific things in mind that you're not able to find, we're always welcome to suggestions.
All right. Well, that was one of the things, is if it could be more known that we could make suggestions to have different genres or have more of this or more of that. It seems that there's a lack of that. But I'm glad to see that you have a lot of money into the materials part, though. Thanks.
All right, thank you. John, you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to take a step back and maybe give a little further explanation. The previous speaker had asked that, or you had mentioned there was supposed to be a generator there?
It was intended to be, but
When you say intended, was that part of the original project?
it was.
And if there is still money, why isn't it done?
There's not sufficient funds to be able to purchase that.
All right, so
generator.
I know they cut back, I'm going to guess at the figure, they cut the size of it back 25%. Instead of coming back and saying, the cost of things have gone up, could we get more money? We voted to build a certain library, and we didn't get it. It got cut back, I believe it was in the vicinity of 25% square footage. And when I found that out, I was quite upset, because that's not what the people approved. And if costs go up, and I thought they should have come back. So that was something that was in there. And how short are you? If you were looking to do a generator, you have any idea what the cost, or Mark, would you have any idea?
More than that. So the building fund had about 39,000 left in it. We don't have an exact estimate for what it would cost to put a generator, but it would be over 150,000.
All right. Oh, I was just curious, because I didn't know that got cut out. I knew they cut the size down substantially, but I didn't know they were leaving things out. That gets very frustrating when you're part of the process to vote it in, and then they just unilaterally don't do what was voted.
Joel.
But, thank you.
Joel, did you have a comment on that?
If you know, I think I can help you with this a little bit, okay? When the building was designed, we decided, because of cost restraints, not to buy a generator, okay? There is a connection on the outside and what they call an automatic transfer switch on the inside. The theory is that if you lose power and you need a generator, somewhere in the bowels of the DPW is this portable generator that gets trucked out to the library, parked next to it, and gets plugged in. That's what I've been told, okay? The problem, sir, is that the generator only has emergency power for the large meeting room in the back. That's it.
For the portable.
For anyone you put in there, even if you get a permanent one. Nope.
Mr. Chair,
The only thing that it covers.
if it's okay, the chief, the
seems
fire
to be a
chief would
pretty
like
poor
to speak to
design.
this.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. But I do want to follow up on Joel's comment after this.
Do you want to
Absolutely,
go
yes,
first? or-
yes, Chief.
Okay, sure. Michael Carroll, Fire Chief. So we understand the need for the library. I've been working with MEMA. They've just this year opened up the ability to put in grants for generators. tying the fact that we use this as really only a charging warming center when they're open and they have power, to the need to have generator backup for emergencies and still continue to use it as a warming center should the library lose power. The rep from MEMA seems like it's a very good idea and it should pass. So it's a competitive grant as well. I can't guarantee it, but we're in the works of trying to get at least some help on that side. And the understanding is, we're going to need a generator that's powerful enough to fit the needs of the library. So hopefully we can capture that.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Chief Carroll.
Very good.
Joel, are you saying that the building's only wired so that even if we got a generator, it would only power that one room? Is that what you said?
The design of the electrical system is such so that only that room is connected to what they call the emergency power system, okay? So if you plug in a generator, that's the only thing that gets impacted with that generator. That's the way the building was designed, and that's the way it was built.
Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any other, Mark, you have a question?
Yeah. I thought the Freeman Street station was supposed to turn into our warming and all that. at
Well, we'll
some
probably
point.
cover that.
Well, no, but they were
later.
just saying that they're going to turn the library into that, but isn't the Freeman Street station supposed to be that? So we're going to be spending it on two different places?
It's not turning it into it. It acts as that now.
Yeah, you're correct, Mr. Anzabino. I apologize. I heard part of that, whether we're turning it. No, we use, oh, right. So aside from Freeman Street, it's not used now, but my thought process on this was to really help the residents. And right now, we do use this as a warming center, a charging center for for people that want to come in if they lost power, that they can charge their phone, so they have contact. And so we're using that now. I just saw it as an ability to fit a need for the town. The goal is, ultimately, the best shelter would probably be the high school if it was a massive move, but a shelter's a heavy lift. I typically try to use the Weymouth Regional shelters here, when we call them a warming center or kind of a cooling center in the summer. This is a lot easier. When it gets to shelters, it's you're talking higher security, facilities, bathrooms, locker rooms, so that would be more towards the high school. I just saw a need, and I thought we could tie that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Mark. We have any other questions or comments from the committee? Diane, you have a question?
And through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I love the library. I love your ebooks. They are fabulous. E-rate. Are we still in the old colony system for that, or do you apply for that singly now?
Yes, we still go through Old Colony
Okay.
for that.
Do you know how much you receive every year from that, or is it just in books, or?
I do not know. I'm sorry, I don't have those figures.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee on the library budget? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public on the library budget? Please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. To the previous speakers about warming centers, in a town of nearly 30,000 people, we would need more than one warming or cooling center, so that the different locations that people have mentioned are all good ideas if we have a major issue, like a hurricane or an earthquake or something. Also, to a previous speaker, and also to the library director, perhaps a artistically decorated suggestion box that says, what books would you like to see, what genres would you like to see placed prominently, might get some positive feedback. I know you do some kids' art projects. Maybe that's something the kids can put together and have one on each floor, perhaps, just so folks have an idea that they have some input.
It's a great idea.
Any other questions, comments? Elliot, you have a question?
If I remember correctly, I've been in the library when they had as a cooling center. That generator that we were talking about previously, it only fed the conference room, but I got the impression when I was there that if you lost the power, that conference room or whatever you call it there, that's right on the ground floor in the upper section, is that correct? So the lighting in there, people could just walk outside. And downstairs in the first floor, you would have the emergency exit lights so they could go out there. So the elevator not working, to me, would not be an issue. Or am I wrong on that?
I don't think that would be an issue, like you're saying, except for if we just did need people to be able to move from one floor to another.
Except for, I remember once we lost power over at 110 Liberty Street, and I was in the elevator. And I was going for ultrasound. And they said, drink a lot of water before you get there. And that was painful.
Thank you very much for that,
It wasn't the procedure
Elliot.
that was painful, it was the waiting. Thank you.
Vivid picture.
We have any other questions or comments from the public on the library budget? Any other questions or comments from the committee on the library budget? I think the library is a great thing in society and everything, and according to my kids, your coffee's there there's really good. That's what I heard. Thank you very much. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, Veteran Services. Page 43. Thank you very much, Mr. Anzavino. Whenever you're ready.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Sean Butrica, as most of you I've met. I'm Sean Butrica, the Veteran Service Officer.
The mic is for the TV. The room does not have speakers, so you need to project for the room.
Will do.
Your teacher voice.
Well, hello, I'm Sean Butrica, the Veteran Service Officer and Director of Veteran Services here for the town of Stoughton. I'm here today to present what I believe is a very conservative budget that leaves room for emergencies and to modernize certain aspects of the department. Obviously, our focus is on veterans, spouses, and the term we're leaning towards is military connected. It just encompasses anyone who is eligible for veteran and military benefits. I'll take any questions.
You have any questions or comments from the committee on the Veteran Services budget? Jess, you have a question?
Couple of questions, thanks. I see that you've increased the veterans benefits line, and I'm interested in hearing about that simply because in the past, you all have talked to us about the fact that you have fewer and fewer veterans. So could you explain that?
Certainly. I did a statutory increase. We were directed by the DVS, now EDVS, as they've been elevated to a cabinet level position, that the costs will be going up. In fact, they are, and we will have to increase our payments. An example would be where we would cover $500 worth of fuel, now it's $750 worth of fuel. Currently, our droppage has stopped, and with just minimal outreach, we are now increasing our Chapter 115. We are kind of a central location where a lot of older vets are being priced out of communities around us, and we are here to collect them and make sure that they get every benefit that they are entitled to so that they can live some quality of life. Oh, yeah. Also, we are reimbursed, thankfully, for program admin, myself and Sharon, 75% of all our costs for that line item. Our flags are 100, and also for our homeless veteran and homeless veteran families, we are reimbursed at 100%. So there's only real incentive to, collect and make sure we help these people.
One other small question. I've noticed through our process that we typically give the mighty generous 1.6% of a raise to everybody else, and so why are you only getting 0.5%?
I was going to ask that, Sean.
That's a good question. I believe this budget, I was really focused on making sure our part-time position assistant, which was Sharon Johnson, is now a program administrator.
I'm sorry, is this a union position?
It's a union position. The need, so as our numbers have stopped going down and are starting to increase with several new clients in the application process, the need and the complexity of these cases to make sure that we are fully reimbursed, it's pretty much it is a full-time job. And for both of us and to increase the claims, it's really important that we put the time in for these because we get them on the Chapter 115. By law, we have to when they come in. And while that's going on, there's several interviews, a investigation portion, and payments. Then we start working on their claims so that we can shift them from the town's, even though it's only 25% because of the proper paperwork we file, to federal benefits as an increase in claims or DIC payments so that they're getting the help they need now and then shifting the town's cost off and actually increasing the income of these people far beyond what the town would have to pay in the first place. So it's kind of a win-win. We help them and we have more income coming into the town.
But Sean, I'm going to follow up with a question, if I may, for Jess. I don't know of anybody that's getting a 0.5 increase. Is that a mistake?
When did you start, Sean?
December of 21, right? Yeah.
21?
Yeah.
So the FY '23 was your salary?
Yes.
That's where I was headed, because if you had just come in, I could understand if the salary was based on your predecessor, although I know that's too low for her. But, and that's what I was wondering, if it was something where that didn't really reflect what you were getting last year, and so it might only show as a 0.5% here, but it was actually more, but we can certainly make note of that. And I wanted to follow through with one other thing as well.
Sure.
You had mentioned with your secretary, she obviously became full-time, right? I know she was shared,
Shared, yes.
and now she's full-time, so obviously you would expect the 24,409, let's just say it doubled, and we'll round it off and say it went to 50, and the new salary for the program admin is at 54,692. This is something that came up last night, and I'll just mention it to Mr. Coulter, because what it shows is no increase here. The other line got zeroed out. This doesn't show as an increase, and it's kind of misleading that it may not be the same position, but it obviously went up, and it went up quite a bit, because it actually went up from 24,409 to 54,692. So it went up over $30,000.
No, sir.
It's the same person, new title.
It's the other half was being paid by another department. We just absorbed that other half, so it only went up a couple grand.
Oh, that was in with the
As part of
the assessor.
Yes.
All right, so it was 48,8.
So now, and it was brought on to make sure that,
So 48,8 went up to 54,6.
just to get to the level of what that position is.
No, the point being, I know Mr. Coulter heard it last night, when they do things like this, when you look for percent changes, now you may, I don't know, maybe it shows up down at the bottom where it says it's a 31% increase. It's just when you're trying to do the figures, you're doing an awful lot of work within the budget to find out what the increase was and why, and that's directed more towards the town manager than you.
Trish, do you have something you wanted to add to this? I saw you had your hand up. Do you want to come up and grab a mic or something, or? And identify yourself for the record, although I probably just did. But.
That's all right. Trish Shropshire, I'm the IT director. I was just confirming that, yes, last night when we talked about the assessing department, that part of Sharon's salary was paid in the assessing department, and we had taken it out, and it was put into the veterans fully. So I was just confirming that, that's all. But thank you, Vaughn.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the clarification.
And you, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, that is footnoted in the budget.
That it went full-time.
No, that it was in assessing.
Right.
Right.
And that it's now a full-time.
Yes, sir.
No, I realize, I see that here, but I just didn't add in the other half. That's
No problem.
But the point being is, one more time, where something has actually changed a bit, but it doesn't really reflect unless you really go through the figures and do the work yourself. We should be able to see that in here, that's all. Could have even been in the footnote that the position actually ended up with a 10% raise or whatever. That's all. It's just something that, not that I mind working with numbers. I do it all day, and it's fun for me, but others might not feel the same.
Mark, you have a question?
Yes. What are you doing for outreach, and where are you using that for your expenses?
Oh, as in where does that come out?
And what type of outreach are you doing right now?
So most outreach. Hi guys. So most outreach I can do using the resources of the VA and my conference and my and VA work studies and during my training time. So perfect example, we can write up a flyer and with our VA work studies that are paid directly from the VA to these veterans, so it's employment and while they're in school. You can hand stuff 500 envelopes and get it out to, using the census data and information directly from the VA to our 1,400 known veterans in town and reach them directly without having a special line just for that. I am very specific with the budget where I will only ask for something that I can specifically show I needed exact cost with it, and something like that is kind of just worked into the postage and the paper, which would be supplies and whatnot.
How has the coffee things been going, and how has that been handled?
It's going great. It's growing. The coffee hour is a social event, a social time every month, but in reality, it's for me to reach those who do not really use social media and everyone they're in contact with. Although, 10, 15 or so or more people will show up, usually a day or two or after, I get about 10 to 15 more phone calls of people they talk to. We're collecting these people and getting them into the claims process and getting them into other benefits. This touches almost every other department. For every veteran, we get a claim that's income into the town, that's a VA social worker, a VA at-home care that is sent from there, and it's some resources that aren't being taken away from the town, which can then be used for somebody else who isn't eligible for VA care.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you have, Adam, you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of based on what Mark was saying, I was looking at the VA benefits line. So through the spending reports that we get, through January, you had about $145,000 spent. I didn't have the amount that was encumbered, but if you spend at that same rate, you're going to come in about $250,000. So, no, hang on. So, you were approved for $350, and I'm going to tell you a quick little story. So my wife's grandfather was in his 80s or so. He's a Marine. And he obviously needed VA help. But we had to twist his arm to get him to use it. He said, that's for other people. Not, I don't need that. So towards the end of his life, he eventually did use it, and he's like, this is amazing. I wish I used it sooner. So, it's one of those things, but it's like, how do we get people to know this? And it's that outreach kind of thing, but can we use this money in some way to say, hey, this is here, these are the services available, fuel's available, this kind of stuff would be amazing for these people to have.
Chapter 115 program, which is just, it's just naming the law. It's easier to say than Chapter 115 or, 30.
Yeah.
It's actually, Massachusetts is the only state that does this. We've been doing it for about 100 years, and it's actually mandatory. So they tell us, a veteran walks in, asks for this program, we have to submit their package to the state. If we don't, and the state takes it over, we're still paying, but now we're not going to be getting the same refund back. So that money can only be used for that reason.
Those purposes,
And
okay.
proper investigation. It's a type of, to view it, it works more like insurance.
Okay.
We have to do
I
everything
see.
perfect, submit
I
it
see.
perfectly, and if we do, then we get 75% back. And like I said, we have ever increasing numbers, but that number of around between $20,000 and $30,000, it changes because we have to keep track of their monthly income. So if they make less, their next check is more. Also, if they have emergencies, and we have to pay for those. Their roof leaks, they have rats, they need a new refrigerator. It goes to the state approves it, it needs to come out. Now, we are reimbursed, but we need to have the money in that account for that.
Do that.
And that's all done and submitted and approved, and checks are written. So it's all trackable, but to prevent me from being in front of you guys and having a big delay to, let's say, fix that leak, we need to make sure we have that money in there. And that's not, that for those emergencies, but that's not including the money we need in there just for our regular amount, and to include a forecast increase in those Chapter 115s with the economy the way it looks. And this has all been advised from the state level.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. Helpful.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on the Veteran Services budget? Diane, you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hate to keep saying this over and over again, but maybe a little outreach. Again, a lot of people don't even have internet, or a computer or something to go on. And I think next year I'm definitely going to push for a sign at the town hall, because that would be a huge place to advertise all of this.
Can't agree more.
Any other questions or comments from the committee on the Veteran Services budget? Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public on the Veteran Services budget, part of Article 26, General Fund Operating Budget? Please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, Mike Pizarro, 6J Circle. I'm the former Veterans Officer of the town. I'd just like to say that, when the town manager mentioned this once before at a selectmen's meeting, about $12 million a year comes into this town through the federal benefits, and that's a very important part of what Sean does. And it more than makes up for the money that we're spending on the Chapter 115 benefits, which is the biggest part of the budget, of which 75% actually comes back. So the service that's provided by Sean and Sharon, it's understated, the money that brings into the town, for disabled veterans, their surviving spouses, and that type of thing. So I would urge you to, pass this budget as written. I'd also like to say one more thing. As, Sean's predecessor, John Anzavino, referred to me as a her, so he's usually pretty good on what he says. So maybe I'll get my hair cut or something. Thank you, John.
Thank you for those words.
That was during the library, the predecessor.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on Veteran Services budget?
I do want to make one point. Please look at that budget. That's not a 0.5% raise. It's 0.05%.
Understood. It's got to be a mistake. John. I'll look into it.
I just can't believe that, I just can't believe that's correct. I mean, a 0.5% would have at least gone to, something. But
I'm with you.
I had a guy going, that doesn't seem right.
It comes out to $7 a week
And,
increase.
What makes it even worse is it's the budget Sean submitted.
I know. I just like
math
working
isn't
with the
your
veterans that
forte,
much,
huh?
you know?
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, but if you could please stick around, because we'd like to take something out of order.
yeah, Mr.
Any other
Chairman. Oh, go
comments or questions from the public on Veteran Services budget? Hearing none.
Mr. Chair, while we have the veterans agent here, I'm wondering if you could take out of order Article 41, which is to accept the Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 20, Second G, which is for veterans' tax exemption.
Motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Hearing none. We're going to go to Article 41, accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 20, Second G, veterans' tax exemptions. So
Wasn't this through?
would you like to
Yeah.
present that before you leave?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I asked to move it so you could stay there and take care
Oh,
of it.
yeah, sorry, I thought it was, my bad. I know, right? I know. I know. Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G is really just, it's the second to last of the catalog on all those two. The very last one pretty much doesn't apply, but this one is, it opens us up to allow people whose houses are in trusts, but for whatever reason, their names aren't on the trusts, to then be allowed the disabled veterans tax abatement. Usually this is, all accepted at once, but we have the opportunity now to accept this and make sure a few more disabled veterans get that abatement.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article 41? Diane, you have a question?
Is this, through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Is this just a revocable trust, an irrevocable trust, or just any trust?
Any trust that is put up for a reason, it just has to be a reason. Essentially, in the wording of the law, it says if the home must be in a trust, and it needs to be in a trust for a reason, there has to be a reason why the veteran put it in the trust and out of their name. I did share the back. It's really just the one sentence, and that's why usually it's put in all together. It makes more sense in the context of all the other ones, but with this one, it just completes the package.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 41, which is accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G, veterans' tax exemptions? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 41, accept Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G, veterans' tax exemptions? Please identify yourself for the record.
Hi again, Mike Pizzara, 6J Circle here in Stoughton. Again, Sean's predecessor. I may know more about this than Sean actually did. What the law says, and this law has been in effect for a long time, even when I was the veterans officer, but the town of Stoughton, I think to its credit, I don't want to say ignored it, but they didn't follow the law. What the law says, that if a house is in a trust and you're not named as the trustee or the co-trustee, such that you don't have that degree of ownership in the house, then you're not entitled to the tax exemption. It would also, include if you had a fiduciary appointed for you, such that you were unable to manage your own expenses and living expenses and that type of thing. So that's what the law said. Now, I knew about this real estate tax special option years ago when I was president of the Mass Veteran Services Officers Association back in 2013. This had come up, and I think it was in the BRAVE Act. The legislature passed this article that could be presented, this option that could be presented to the town meeting. There was no need for me to do it since the town wasn't really enforcing this law. And I don't want to say the town was not acting illegally, because a lot of towns really didn't look at this. Now, I know an assessor who's not with us, any longer, she picked up on this, and for whatever reason, she did it to save money for the town. Now, that assessor is no longer with the town. I do know that she made a a lot of mistakes on this, that she denied people who should not have been denied. There's a lot of different kinds of trust, and I believe what she was doing, she was just looking, and if the veteran's name was no longer on the tax bill or whatever it is they look at, she was automatically denying them. And there were a lot of reversals on this. So what I would ask you to do, aside from passing this article, to make the town of Stoughton, as it always been, veterans-friendly town, is to also, and I'd ask the town manager this, and I know it's going to fall to Trish, but I know Trish can handle it, is to go and check all of the exemptions that have been denied to see if in fact they have been done correctly, because I know a lot of them haven't. I have been down the assessor's office, but with all the chaos that's been down there, and I've never made any formal request, but I think that's something that should be looked at. Also, this article is obviously going to affect in fiscal year '24. So exemptions potentially have been denied for fiscal year '23. And we're talking about, exemptions for disabled veterans, potentially for widows of veterans, surviving spouses of veterans whose husbands have died as a direct result of their military service, and they are now getting a full real estate tax exemption. So that would be quite a hit for them to be denied if they put their house in a trust, obviously to protect them from a nursing home, but they have this type of trust where they're not named as the trustee or the co-trustee where the exemption gets denied. So I would ask if you do, agree to vote favorably on this article, maybe a footnote or something for those people who are going to be denied or who may be denied in fiscal year '23. Because, by the way, I did try to get this article into the fall town meeting such that it would be in effect for fiscal year '23, but I was very unsuccessful in my attempts to do that. So maybe a footnote in your comments, or maybe the town manager, that anyone who is denied this year, perhaps they could be encouraged to file for an abatement next year for the amount of the exemption that would be denied, particularly if this passes. So that's the only comments I have.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pizarro. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public on Article 41, except Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22G, Veterans Tax Exemptions? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Next on the agenda, we're going to go to Recreation and Youth budget.
Page 47.
Page 47.
Good evening, Matt Koshaw, Recreation and Youth Services Director. Thank you for having me here tonight. So in front of you, budget 630. I'll go over the details of it. In the salary line, where we start, we just have your 1.6% increases. If you look under counselor, you do see a drop of negative 32.2%. That is not a demotion. We had a counselor resign. The counselor was there for 14 years and had those union steps and increases in there. It took us about a month, and we did hire out. We got someone who was actually interning at the Youth Commission. The counselor is a licensed social worker, and it's been a really smooth transition, and it's actually, me and Janice always talk about this like rejuvenated life in the Youth Commission. That's something that I've been very proud of to work with is the Youth Commission. It's free counseling services for our youth and families. And that's something that not a lot of communities have. Each counselor sees about 10 to 12 kids on their caseload. We have seen an uptick in cases, so we do have a small wait list. But that's, if you go out to the private sector, you'll see that across the board. So they do a lot of great work. We actually have been collaborating with them at our summer programs. We actually have a counselor on site now at our open playground program, and that's been terrific for our staff and for the kids, as well as for the parents to have someone with that degree to be able to work with kids down at open playground. So that was that, and then you'll see under program, facilitator has been zeroed out and has been moved to program coordinator. Not an adding a new position, it's a title change. The reason for this was this position has taken over more responsibilities, and that has been, this position is now not only in charge of scheduling out the programs, but they're actually teaching them. we've made a commitment to do more of our programming in-house. This lowers the cost for all of our residents who use our programming. It's a lot safer as well because you know who you're going to get every time, the majority of the time when you come to one of our programs. So this position now is planning and is executing the programs as well. Recently our spring and summer program guide came out on Thursday. 48% of our programs are now run in-house. So that's something that you'll either see myself or my programmer running. It's nice too because now you get to see a friendly face in the community that you know, instead of when we're contracting out, you're going to get a different instructor every time. So it's helped us build a better relationship with the community. And that's been something we've just made a commitment to. An example of cost savings is something on our program guide. We always do Tiny Tykes Youth Soccer. It's a company, a lot of rec departments use them. They're about $100 for a 5-week, 45-minute soccer class. We've kind of taken that and we run something called Little Sports Stars. Same time, same amount of weeks, we charge $25. Huge cost savings to the residents. And we've had kids do, it's been funny when kids will sign up for a program that's contracted out and then we'll get a call being like, yeah, we didn't realize you and Molly weren't there. They're going to drop out of the class, which is really nice because we're creating now a safe space for the kids to come. And I think that's extremely important. If you look down under our expense line, and it isn't anything too crazy, you'll see some deductions, and that's something in the fall when Mark came to us when we were doing the budget. We needed to fill some gaps and work together as a team. So these are areas that I thought we could cut in and not decrease or lose any services. You will see an uptick in grounds maintenance supplies. That's really mainly for the addition of Glen Echo. We have to now fertilize that. This gate maintenance that we have to do as well. And also your inflationary costs that go along with materials. DPW, the parks crew called me the other day, and the pallet of fertilizer has gone up quite a bit. Other than that, our budget has went down.
Thank you.
3.2%. Our programming has continued to go up. We're always, reaching out to residents. If they ever want to see a new type of program, please reach out to us, let us know. We had a resident that reached out a couple months ago and wanted to do wheel spinning, so when you get the clay and you like making it bowls and stuff like that. And that was something we looked into when we were about like a month away from releasing it. We're going to do like an adult pottery class, so you actually be able to spin the clay, and then we have a kiln where you can fire it and paint it and do the whole process yourself. But we've added more adult programs, really beefed up our preschool programs, continue to add teen programs as well. That's something that's extremely important, that teenagers always need, outlets. In our Ames Pond, continue to do about 60 to 70 kids a summer, teaching them swim lessons, which is extremely valuable. We've been offering free swim lessons to families in need. In our open playground program, seeing about 125 kids a week, which is pretty impressive. On the facility side, we've done improvements. We've beefed up our irrigation system at Halloran Park. Big thanks to Mark and the Glen Echo team. Doing Glen Echo. If you haven't been up there yet, I highly recommend it. It's tremendous. And then we've just recently done work at the complex. We've beefed up the varsity baseball field for the upcoming season. If you have a chance, go down and look at it. The crew did a fantastic job. That is all I have, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments? Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, on the Ames Pond swim lessons, I don't know, I know it's invaluable that children or kids or even adults, basically anybody, learn how to swim, or at least save your life for at least a minute or two. I know the schools, and I forgot to ask then, but try to pilot or program with having the kids go to the Y to learn how to swim. Could we actually have you guys take over that or incorporate that and bring that back somehow and have it so we can reach more kids than just the Ames Pond in the summer.
Yeah, you definitely could. The issue is our only spot is Ames Pond, and you're not really going to swim there in the wintertime or in the fall time. Another issue too is lifeguards. Lifeguards, there's a national lifeguard shortage right now. Kids just don't want a lifeguard anymore. It's tough getting them a lifeguard. So getting certified WSIs.
Well, could you work something out with the Y to utilize?
Oh, we definitely
their
could.
lifeguards?
Utilize that. Yeah, we definitely could. Some rec departments work together with them in like the wintertime when they don't have that outdoor space. So that's something we could definitely look into.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Joel, you have a question?
Yeah. Don't you guys have a revolving fund?
Yes, we do.
Is the revolving fund a separate line item in this budget, or I can't remember?
It's
It's a separate
Because I can't find it under this.
Separate article for the revolving.
Oh,
fund.
it's an
13
article.
Article 13, I think, is the revolving fund.
Okay, so I
We
just,
did receive a printout for what the,
that's what I
they're
thought.
looking to boost it up this year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right. So you do have it, though. Okay. All right. Fine. Thank you. I'm all set.
Any other questions or comments? Eric?
Hi. It's a minor thing, but you don't need any first aid supplies?
Our counselors.
The
are
Eagle
so
Scout
good.
inside me just panicked.
Our counselors are so good, the kids don't get hurt. No, that's just something we can take in with our revolving fund and build it into program costs.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You good with that? Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the recreation and youth budget? Diane, you have a question?
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The lessons that you give at Ames Pond, and I think Mark might have said something about this, but I didn't quite hear it. Are they Red Cross certified, or can they be Red Cross certified?
All of them are.
And
All of
can
them.
we push that further so that you end up getting lifeguards from those
Yeah, we've been
certified
really
kids?
pushing Red Cross. Some of them are Ellis certified, which is kind of like a YMCA specific one. It's actually a harder course to pass. I push the Red Cross because it's a 2-year certification.
Right.
Ellis is 1, so it's a pain for me to be harping on the kids if they have the Ellis cert. Hey, you got to go get recertified with Red Cross. You're good for 2.
Again, it would be nice for the people of the town to know that, because I think they don't.
Yep.
Thank you.
Jess, you have a question, comment?
Yes, thanks. I feel like you've explained this to me before, so I apologize. It's been a while. Can you remind me why the program coordinator 2 position is paid at a higher rate than the department head?
That's a good question. So that position has been there for quite a while. I'm not sure how long she's actually been there for, but it's all the union steps and increases that position has received. She's also LMHC and works on specific caseloads. Yeah, it was when we transferred it in, so that was why.
Right, John, you have a question?
Just following suit with all the other ones, you've reclassified someone and so forth. And just to be clear, that was just under 22% increase. I know it says increased programs and so forth, but just to be fair, 22% is quite a jump.
Yeah, and like I said, most of it is because now we're asking that employer to teach the programs as well. So instead of just coordinating them out, they're teaching them.
Whatever the reason, 22% is still quite a jump, especially when we consider that the crisis we were in at the time. So I'm just being fair. I call out on the other departments. I'm going to call it out anytime I see it. So that's all. And thank you. You're doing a great job. I know a lot of people just have a lot of good things to say about the recreation department.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Keep it up and give Molly the best.
Will do.
Any other questions, comments from the committee? Recreation and youth budget? I have a quick question here. It says increased programs conducted in-house. Were those previously outsourced?
A lot of the programs were outsourced, yeah.
So where was that in the budget, I guess?
It just comes out of the revolving fund, so they pay for
I
themselves.
didn't know if it was a special line. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee on this? Recreation and youth, hearing none. Questions or comments from the public on the recreation and youth budget? Hearing none, go to the next item on the agenda, which is community events.
Page 49.
Page 49.
So, Matt Koshan, Recreation Youth Services Director, Community Events. You'll see here two changes. One is the Select Board inserted the 300th anniversary celebration. I believe that's going to be $50,000. I believe that's an article in town meeting. So that will be used. I just met with the chair of the committee the other day, so they'll have funds to conduct whatever they have plans for. And I've said I will gladly help them out with whatever they need. And then the other major change is the police detail line. This is something where we're struggling to get. Oh, Donna, you want me to go over it? Yeah, we're struggling to get the officers to take the details. So Donna is now forcing them to work the details like the parades. When you do that, it's now overtime is at a higher cost. So that is why this line is increasing.
All right.
Other than that, too, I just want to say fireworks will be July 2nd as well. And I just want to thank everybody, town, school, who was a part of the fireworks last year, getting it back going. It was a lot of collaboration, a lot of work, and I just want to thank everybody who was involved. The fire chief did work closely with Atlas, and they were so impressed with our town staff and our facilities that they will be able to bring in more fireworks this year. So I'm excited.
Okay, any questions or comments from the committee, community events? Dave, did you have something? No? Okay. Diane, you have something?
Thank you for that. Where, I wasn't in town last year, where did they go off over the West School complex,
Correct.
I would assume? The Stoughton Day events, do we know the date of that yet?
It's always the last Saturday in September.
Last Saturday, September. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay. Any other
Just-
questions, comments from the committee
Just
on
one- just-
community events? Bob, you have something?
Yeah, just one quick one. So last year, as far as the 4th of July, we spent 8,434, and this year, 38,260.
That's 4th of July. The 4th of July line has the fireworks built into it.
Oh, it does?
Yep.
Okay.
And that was FY22. Like I had was 8,000. So FY23 we spent, the fireworks was brought in there. Yep.
Right. Any other questions, comments from the committee on this? All right. Any questions or comments from the public on the community events budget line? Hearing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda. Council on Aging, item E.
Page 42.
Page 42.
Okay. Hi. Janice Bruce, Director of Human Services. Is this on?
Yeah, but that's only for the TV.
It's only for the
Denise.
TV.
Oh.
They got to hear.
Oh. Okay.
The microphone to the people at home and your voices for the people here.
Okay, all right. Janice Bruce with the Council on Aging, Director of Council on Aging, Human Services. So this budget was pretty straightforward. We, both in salaries and expenses, we were lower this year. As you'll see that we lowered salaries on van drivers, full-time and the part-time drivers, and that's because we had a lot of people that retired, and so we had both of our full-time people retire, and we're now able to hire at a more of a, a lower rate, as well as the part-time drivers that had been there for a long time. We're hiring part-time drivers at a lower rate. So that's where that difference in salaries came in. Expenses, there were some that were increased and some that were lowered. We're seeing now that people are back to the senior center, and it's doing really well. The activities are, if you look at the COA calendar, there's a wide range of types of activities, and the trips are back, which is awesome. The bike club went to Sharon. We tried, Joel, we did try the bike club. But So we're really excited because we definitely feel that there's a new excitement going on at the COA with much more activities. The suppers are back. So we did increase that senior activities line. The telephone line went up a little bit because of our fax machine and the cell phones, that the costs of those went up. Dues and subscriptions, there's mostly for that electronic system that records people when they come in with their card. It's called My COA, that all the people that come in to use the activities, plus the movie license costs for that. But our bottom line budget was lower this year, and I think that's partly because some of the things that we normally were paying for are now under facilities, so fleet and facilities.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments from the committee on the Council on Aging? Joel?
Yeah, it's similar to what I asked on the library. Are you foreseeing any type of capital improvements into your building over the next couple of years that we should be thinking about?
Well, that's probably more of a question for Paul, because I think there were some things, and I'm
Well,
not
those are
exact-
maintenance issues, I think. But I'm talking about you
Oh,
make it bigger or more
not
parking
that
or.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
We were supposed to be getting a grant from the state to put a pickleball court in, but we keep waiting for that.
Gag.
Everybody loves it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the committee on the Council on Aging budget? Hearing none, any questions or comments? Please identify yourself for the record, Cynthia.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I'd like to ask the committee to consider 3 full-time bus drivers. I've had occasions, at least once a month, when I've called in advance. It's not a cab service, so I don't call the day off. But I have significant medical issues and a great number of appointments, and I've been told we're booked solid. We're booked on solid on a Tuesday, booked solid on a Thursday. So I can't be the only senior that has that issue. Also, I called today at 11 to say I was through, and nobody got there until 11:45, and then we had to pick up someone else and deliver her, so it was like 12:10 when I got home. It's over an hour. I know I'm old and maybe I shouldn't consider that, but to me every hour is important, and sometimes I have other things to do. I am a diabetic, so I have to eat on schedule, and so I can't always do that. So a third full-time driver, and I know it's been very hard to get drivers. I was told that a number of the part-timers have no longer do that. They weren't getting what they considered enough part-time hours, and I know that Dial-A-Bat has the same issue. Luckily, I usually can get Dial-A-Bat to cover what our senior bus doesn't cover, but that's more expensive. The senior bus is cheaper.
Thank you very much for that. John, did you have something?
Could I respond to that?
I was just going to ask, if you were to look for another full-time, what would that entail?
Well, I just met with the town manager last week with Rob and the transportation manager to talk about putting a third full-time person on. And we're really excited. I was over there today, and we went over our budget and our numbers, and I feel that we can, within our existing budget, be able to accommodate a third third full-time driver. So that's definitely something, I agree with Cynthia wholeheartedly. The drivers we have are great, but they're spread very thin. And it just so happened that we lost several kind of went out on medical and different reasons kind of suddenly. So it put us in a little bit, coming off of having not a whole lot of transportation during COVID, and all of a sudden we're back up and running, and we're seeing that this is a need to have somebody else out there.
And how many vehicles do you have?
We have the one town that Stoughton has, and we have 4 BAT ones, and we really should have all of those buses running. So at least 4 should be running every day with either the 3 full-timers and a part-timer, and we have plenty of needs out there that it would be great because we could take them to even, what happens is we obviously take the medical appointments first, but we want people to socialize, so we want to be able to give them the rides to the senior center, get them home. We were giving free rides if they come up for a physical activity or one of the exercise classes. So it's really important. For some people, this is their lifeline. So I am definitely working with the town manager on getting another driver full-time.
But you believe you can do that within this budget?
I believe we can. We looked over the numbers today, and we,
You know what you're telling us is that the budget is over by one full driver, right? I mean,
no, well, we have, we have fewer part-timers, and, good news, the formula grant this year came in at an increase. So that was sort of an unexpected, nice little treat from the state, because for the past 10 years, it's been always the same. And this year, because it's the formula grant, our formula is higher for more seniors. That's the other thing. The needs for seniors are increasing. Our community is getting more of a demographic of seniors in it now. So,
You know?
I do too.
Well, thank you very much for that. Any other question? Diane, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. This is a wonderful program. And you said we have 4 BAT buses, correct? The small ones, like the Stoughton vehicle itself?
Some have more,
I think I really kind of want to know if they're all handicapped.
I think
Yeah.
our bus is like 12 passenger, and then I think there's one of the BAT buses, I think, is 16, and then you have one that has the chair.
The wheelchair.
Wheelchair accessibility.
So do our drivers drive the
Yes,
BAT buses?
yes,
They do?
and they have special, they go through training so that they
Okay.
have to do a certain training to be eligible to drive those, so.
Okay. Would there be an occasion that we might be able to get a 5th BAT bus?
If there was a need, we have to send a report in every month on our usage.
Well, just if you had another driver, it would just make sense to get one more and be able to handle a little bit more than you do.
Yep. Yeah, if we see that need, we'll definitely be
Okay,
reaching
thank you.
out to them.
Again, thanks for all you do.
Okay, any other questions, comments on this? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public on the Council on Aging budget? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, substance abuse prevention, also part of Article 26.
Page 44.
Page 45, thank you.
44, sir.
Let's go with 44.
Okay. I will handle this budget. I work alongside Stephanie Patton and Trish on the OASIS budget, and there really wasn't a whole lot of change except the AmeriCorps Fellow has gone up, and it went up, how many? $440.
All right. Questions or comments from the committee on the substance abuse prevention budget line? Okay, hearing none. Questions or comments from the public on the substance abuse prevention budget line? Hearing none, we will go to the next item on the agenda, Health and Human Services budget.
Page 40.
Page 40, thank you.
I got it here. Okay. So I believe that's my salary for doing human services.
Mhm. Yeah, stipend.
It's a stipend.
Any questions or comments from the committee on the Health and Human Services budget line? No questions from the committee, okay. Any questions or comments from the public, Health and Human Services budget line? Please identify yourself for the record, Cynthia.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. And I just hope we don't burn Ms. Bruce out. I don't know how she can find enough minutes in the day to do all of these jobs, but thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's probably timely that we announce Janice's retirement in August or September of next year.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We burnt her out.
Speaking of being burnt out.
Not because I'm burnt out. I'm just at that wonderful point in my life, and it's just, I have to say, I have really thoroughly enjoyed my 34 years with the town of Stoughton, working with the VNA in the past 4 years, working in the human services, getting to know the COA, working with Matt in the rec department, working with my fire and police, and it's been terrific. I've loved it. So I have to go out while I'm still loving it.
And Janice says,
For bike riding?
Right, I'm going to go to bike riding.
Mr. Chairman, Janice has offered, and we've accepted her offer to come back 2 days a week in a line capacity, working with the seniors of Stoughton.
So I'll still be connected, and that will be kind of perfect. You know, if the town will still have me, I'd love doing it.
Well, thank you very much, and
you.
have a nice retirement. Any questions or comments on the Health and Human Services budget?
Sorry, what was that retirement date? This coming August?
31st.
This year? Like
I
soon?
missed your big announcement, but I want to wish you the best. Yeah, you
Thank
waited
you.
till I left.
I know,
time.
John, it's been a lot of
But
years.
Yes, it has, and it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, no matter where I sat. It's been a
Great,
pleasure.
thank you.
And I do wish you the best.
And there is life after the town of Stoughton.
Cynthia, I'll probably be joining you at the,
Question?
Part-time driver.
yeah, right. Right,
You'll pop up somewhere.
I'll be biking with Joel, I'll be driving the bus.
So questions or comments from the committee, Health and Human Services? No more? Any more questions, comments from the public, Health and Human Services? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, Commission on Disabilities.
Excuse me. It's page 44.
Thank you very much.
Do you know where this one came from? I'm trying to find it. It's 44. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I know where this came from. Oh, it's all marketing.
Yeah, it's marketing.
Yeah. Mark's going to speak to this.
Mr. Chairman, this line, I believe, was always there. It just was not funded. The select board actually put a vote in earlier this year to fund it by $7,000 to support the Commission on Disabilities. They've been very active. I met with them when I was the interim. They want to increase their marketing campaign for public outreach and things of that nature. So essentially, the fees associated with this line is for that. It's for marketing and public outreach.
So this is just office supplies for the commission then?
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee on the Commission on Disabilities budget? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on the Commission on Disabilities budget? Please identify yourself for the record, Cynthia.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I've been communicating with members of the commission about the assistive devices, but also the condition of a lot of the ramps around town. And these will have to be capital expenses. But a lot of the ramps to our public buildings have no railings. A ramp is nice if you're in a wheelchair, but a lot of us aren't in wheelchairs yet. We're using walkers and canes, and it's really helpful to have at least one railing to grip with the opposite hand. When they were having the meetings on the school, not the school, the library, I was informed by a past building inspector that the walk in front of the library is not officially a ramp, it's a walkway, so it didn't need any kind of railing. And I railed at the meetings that there should be a railing, especially in New England, when that ramp or / walkway can be kind of icy and slick. And I was told that if there was fund left, they would put in a railing, and they put in a railing. But it's really best to have two. If you look at the one outside Town Hall, that's great. It's got a railing on either side, depending on which side you have a hand free. But believe it or not, there are no railings at the Council on Aging building. There aren't any railings at the police station. I mean, I know it's gonna cost money to put in the railings and drill the holes and everything else, but as previous speakers have noticed, this community is getting older and older, and some older people are becoming disabled that weren't before, and even younger people are born or become disabled. So that's something to consider when you do your capital plan, that there be railings. I know it sounds silly, but also adequate lighting. I don't know what you can do about outside here, this building, but when you leave this building after one of your meetings, it is pitch dark out there. There are no lights on the railing. There is a railing, but there's no lights. That kind of thing is, if you're healthy and you can bound up and down the steps, God bless you. But for the rest of us, a little light and a little hand holding is what we need.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on the Commission on Disabilities budget line? Hearing none. I'm going to go to the next item, which is Article 26, General Fund Operating Budget, Public Safety, Police Department.
Page 20.
Page 20, thank you.
Yeah, I'll give you, I'm sure you'll have the answers.
Good evening, everyone. Chief Donna McNamara from the Stoughton Police Department. Would you like me to go through anything specific, or how would you like me to do this, Mr. Chairman?
If you want to give the highlights of anything on there, then we'll just go to questions, I guess, if you want to do that.
Okay, we'll start with the comment the town manager made last evening, being short 10 officers. We currently have 9 vacancies, 4 of which were positions that were either hired or given conditional offers last year. Some of them didn't make it through the academy, or 2 others didn't make it into the academy because of the conditional offer process that we give. So when we do a hiring process, we give them a conditional offer. Then there are certain things that they have to pass before they can get into an academy. There are 4 steps, and we had 2 that didn't pass that beginning stage, so they were never given an offer of employment. We lost a few to retirement and others to resignations, for a total of 7 in 1 calendar year, which is the most significant since I've been the chief. Consistently, I've been able to hire multiple people over the 7 years in this position. And last year was the first year we never put one student officer in a police academy, which is, had its impact on our staffing to be down. 9 full-time vacant positions, and 1 position has been out injured for a significant amount of time, which we are in the process and awaiting on Norfolk County for a forced retirement. So that gives us 10 vacant patrol officer positions. That's probably the most significant in the budget. We are interviewing next week 6 candidates. We are still a civil service community. So the civil service process is we contact civil service. They give us a list. For the first time in my career, there was only 22 names of Stoughton residents that took the police officer exam, passed it, and were willing to be on the list. Of the 22 names, when we called for to hire at this point, for this hiring, we had 7 individuals come in and 2 are on military, so it's a total of 9 accepted, saying that they would be interested in the position of the 22. We're in the process, and we'll be doing 6 interviews next week. We have the 2 that were in the military. We'll go through the process. They're on deployment, so we won't be able to see them. And then additionally, in consultation with civil service, we sent out another 140 emails to non-residents, and with that, we had an additional 6 people come in and sign the civil service list. So, we have a potential that we will go through, we've gone through the background process, and we'll do the interviews next week of 6 candidates, and then we'll work with the individuals that signed with interest that are in the military, and then after that, we will work with those individuals that signed interested in positions that are on the non-residents list to try and fill those positions. It is a little bit more difficult to get people into an academy because of the hiring that's going on, nationwide, but significantly in Massachusetts. But I have 5 seats saved in the academy that will begin in August at the MBTA. So our goal is to get a minimum of 5 in that academy. But if seats open up in other academies because people are not able to get into the academy for not being able to pass for other communities, and I can get into any of those waiting lists, we will put anybody in the academy once we have the final offer and the conditional offer is done. I know that's a lot of information for everybody to take in, but that's the most significant, I think.
Right, well, thank you very much for that, Chief McNamara. Do you have any questions? Yeah, Laura?
Excuse me. Thanks for that overview. Just thinking about, it seems like there's a number of forces at play. So I understand, people not getting into the academy, people not passing through the academy. And then there seems to be kind of a nationwide shortage. Are there challenges specific to Stoughton that are beyond those things that you gave an overview from? Like, do we feel like we're not similar to the conversation? I'm going to keep coming back to these HR issues, similar to what we talked about last night, where, are there things that we can be doing to attract more, or are there things about Stoughton that are making it harder for you to find people that are appropriate for filling these positions?
Well, I first would start off with the career itself has taken quite the hit
Sure.
over the last 4 years, with the desire of becoming a police officer diminishing significantly over the last 4 or 5 years. That's the first one. That's nationwide. I went to the National Academy. 240 of us were in the academy. Every one of us across the country were dealing with the same shortages and significant in our field. Additionally, in Massachusetts, many communities have left civil service. So when they leave civil service, they don't have to just pull from a civil service list to hire. So there are individuals that are willing to leave positions, resign from that department, and go to another department if they're going to answer less calls for service, if they're going to get paid more, and then maybe even if they're going to go to a midnight shift, they're willing to compromise those things if the quality of the overall, they get better pay and better benefits in addition to maybe not working quite as hard as they do here in Stoughton. So there's a lot of things at play.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, if there are things, if it is a salary issue or it is, these different levers that we have to pull, just understanding what those are, because this seems kind of at a critical point that's gone on a little too long.
I will say to you that in 2016, when I took over as acting chief, we had less patrol officers than we have right now. So we, unfortunately, were in a worse position when I first took over. And we got pretty high. We were up to the 54 patrol officers. We're right around the 52 and about to hire a couple to make us 54. And, that didn't work out. So we've been in worse situations, but we do, I would say we are right in the middle of the road as far as salaries. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but for the amount of work and calls for service that the patrol officers and supervisors, deal with on a daily basis, we're not, there are other departments out there that are paying more.
Competitive.
May I, Donna?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes.
Laura, you and I'm thankful for this, consistently raised the concern about burnout and overwork. When you're 10 officers short, the remaining staff are forced all the time because you've got minimum staffing levels for at least 2 out of the 3
All three shifts.
shifts, or all three shifts. And so people are forced to work overtime. And not a day goes by that Donna and I don't talk about this almost as a business model. How do we get the right people? How do we get quality people? How do we get people? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The police department dealt with a very serious and despicable situation a couple of years ago, and not a day goes by that Donna doesn't have to deal with the aftermath of that, from a public perception, from a recruiting perspective, from an internal morale perspective, and she and I and her deputy and Mr. Tisdale talk about it all the time. There are things we can do and that we're planning to do that we think will make Stoughton a much better, more attractive place to be. And there will be budget implications, however. By way of example, and the chief hasn't settled on any of this, doing 410s for the current younger youth, that's attractive. That's very attractive. Wages to get above the 50 percentile in terms of compared to like departments. More professional development training. And when you train, it costs for the training, it costs for the housing, it costs to force another officer to be on overtime while they're training. I think the only way, and I know I speak for Donna, the only way we get this department to be the shining star of Massachusetts is to really make significant impacts. Now, we're not significant investments. We're not doing that or recommending that for fiscal '24 because we haven't fully flushed out the plan. But when we have a plan, we'll certainly be coming before this committee and giving you every detail of that plan. We know that the current status is not sustainable on so many fronts. And again, tomorrow won't pass without us meeting and discussing it and brainstorming it all over again. And we're seeking advice from other people in the industry. That's why Donna went to her training to get counsel from chiefs throughout the country. And she has come back with a wealth of information and a plethora of ideas so that we can really address the ills of the department over the next several years. Do you agree with that?
I just want to say thanks to Chief McNamara and thanks to you for that. I think it's good to know that there's a plan, just because, this is something that affects everyone in this town and surrounding towns. So just want to make sure that we're supporting you to fix this problem.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
Jess, do you have a question?
Yeah, although thanks, Mr. Coulter, for addressing some of that. I was wondering, following on Laura's question, Dr. Gunn's question, whether or not the reputational damage you spoke of was having a negative effect. I mean, it seems that Globe stories coming out, there's a lot of focus publicly on Stoughton Police Department in particular. And I'm just wondering if you're seeing that as a piece of the struggle for recruitment here specifically, or if you don't see that as one of the major factors hindering hiring here.
I believe it does contribute to the recruitment, absolutely. The men and women of the department that are here to pick up the pieces are going to do their very best and do that. They're here working through the difficult times. And are examples to be followed in this town. And they are great people who work very hard for our community every single day. And those that are desiring to come to our town understand the core values and the integrity of the officers that are in our department. And that's what's bringing them in their desire to come here.
And so tied to that, I was curious about specifically the line item in the budget on in-service training and education. I see that there's a line for in-service training tuition that has some funding in it, but there's nothing in the in-service training and education piece. And given that we've had problems, I just thought maybe there would be kind of recognition with the budget being an explicit document that is both about demonstrating values and commitments to what we care about, and also a method of accountability. I was sort of surprised to see nothing there, and wondering if the police are making an investment in training officers, as a part of the solution to bringing the problems to light and preventing things from happening in the future. So I just was hoping you could address that piece of the budget.
There are 2 line items for training in service. Some of it's pay and some of it's tuition, but there's actually a 3rd line item that shows nothing. So it's further down if you look down for the tuition part, and then additionally if you look back up into the just below in the in-service pay for in-service underneath court time. So it's kind of it's in-service is listed 3 times. One of them is blank, but it's broken up into the pay salary for the officers and also down in tuition. I don't know why it was broken up that way. So if you look on the top half of the budget, you'll see court time, then you see overtime in service. That's just salaries. If you,
Positions for open positions, they're still funded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to speak to that.
yeah.
So there's money there for us to train for salaries. One other major bucket, I'm sorry, Vaughn, through you.
Do you see how it's listed, Dr. Morrow?
And one other major bucket to draw from, and it's not a good situation to be in, but it's one that's real. We've got 10 positions we're trying to fill that are unfilled right now. So as we develop this plan and want to make an investment in training, we're not going to have to worry about sending them away and forcing people to work overtime because of those unfilled positions. Not a place you want to be in, but that's certainly a source of funding to make an investment in training until we get the right staffing levels.
I would add that for the first, as I've explained many times, but in years past, it's 5 months while they're in the academy, it's a lesser pay. And then when they get out, they go through 2 months of field training additionally, so they don't get on as far as part of our staffing, impacting our minimum staffing for 7 months. So if I don't get 5 in the academy until August, we're not going to see them till after the first of the year. We're almost through the fiscal year at that point. That's if we only get 5. If I can get more on in other academies, and prior to that, I will. The overall training is for everyone in services, is for the senior officers or veteran officers that have been in the department from post the academy.
Thank you very much for the question, Jess and Laura. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, well, she kind of took part of my thing that was I was going to ask
Stole your
on the
question.
in-service training and education, but what I would like to do with that line is rename it anyways because it was left blank, on whether it should be renamed outreach. Because I know there is at least 3 outreaches that I know that you guys have done or currently do. And I know one is phenomenal, and I think the whole town loves it. I don't know if there's a cost associated to it. If there is, we should put it in the budget, which is the haunted house. I know I hear it from everybody, they love it, it's great. I don't know if there is a cost. If there is, I think we should have it in the budget, because it is a great outreach for you guys. Also, the pandemic, but I don't know if you're bringing back Coffee with a Cop. I believe those were by a grant before or not, I'm not sure.
So we utilize all of those, and the majority of the funding, some of that is through our overtime. We'll send people out to do the outreach because it's only a, short block of time. So we do 4-hour minimums with Coffee with a Cop. We usually do that in October for different locations, so we will send an officer to 4 or 5 different locations around the community during that time. The haunted police station is a significant draw. Last year, we had 250 individuals, young and old, come through and get terrified in the station. Thanks to our very dedicated staff that love Halloween, and some of our community members that participate. And it's just as enjoyable for all the staff that get involved and enjoy it. And we utilize that through our regular overtime funding.
So you don't, well,
We don't break it out into the budget.
I was wondering if he should have a line for outreach, so you don't have to wait, we have to wait for a grant to do some outreach or this or that. You automatically have something that you can automatically do something for outreach,
And additionally,
times a year,
I think probably your third is the Citizens Police Academy.
Yes, that was going to be my third, was going to be the Citizens Academy.
That's been very successful, and we will continue to do that as well. And we bring in various different officers with their specialties to come in and address the class, and that's been very successful. And then additionally, the students that participate come back, ride with officers on shift, and get to see a little bit more behind the scenes and right up in front of what goes on in the life of a police officer. So
Yeah,
It's all built into
I did
our
the Citizens
overtime.
Academy. It was phenomenal. I realized that, yes, I do not want to be a police officer. There's a lot of information that you would never even think that they have to know, and it's just, yeah. But it was very good.
very informative for
Yeah.
those that participate, and then they reach many more people in the community every time they talk to someone and explain it. So we've seen more interest in wanting to get more people involved in the class. I would love to see it run twice a year and
Yes.
expand on it. And when we see that point, we will continue it.
Okay. But yeah, if you look into like a line item would be great. It would show to the public that you actually show that you want to do outreach.
So I would add that we do a number of other things for outreach, and I could list a lot more, but usually it's in my annual report that what we do each year. But we do a huge toy drive in the holiday season that is very significant. Has been very successful over the last 5 years. We go to the schools and read. We have a math event that's coming up at I believe it's the Wilkins School. We'll send officers to that. We go in and read whenever they have a reading challenge at any of the elementary schools. We also do ride to school with the chief. I've just written probably 5 letters this week for all the elementary schools, so that's all just a few of the things that we do as far as our outreach.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mark. John, you have a question?
Sure. You do a food drive too, don't you?
We've done a food drive. We had officers this past, in years past. They started off with No Shave November and wanted to continue to extend it through the wintertime, so they did charitable donations to food pantry and other things, yeah.
And before I get into my questions, I do want to thank you for your efforts. I know it's been a tough time, and I think you've done a very good job trying to keep things on the straight and narrow. So I just wanted to throw that out, my own personal congratulations for the job you're doing.
Thank you.
So with that, just a reminder that we've been asked to put the 2 SROs back in to this department, and that was with $146,036 that would be back in this budget. So the only other question I had was the extra deputy chief. Could you give some insight on why you're looking for that? I know it's only half this year, which will turn into a full, and I'd like to know, with that in mind, what the split would be on that 190 or 80 for the current deputy and if you get the new deputy.
So the intent with the new deputy is our goal is to implement in the near future body cameras. Body cameras is a significant undertaking for the department with public records requests additionally, and setting up and monitoring and all that goes with that. The reason for body cams is it builds public's trust with us. That's one reason. That's a big reason. But additionally, most of the country has body cams, and this state is headed that way. There is a grant out there. The expense is not just the cameras, but it's then the storage and afterwards, the maintenance afterwards. So there will be significant costs that will come after that for the program itself. But before we even get to it, the program being lifted off the ground, we have to put a foundation in place. And the deputy chief position will be a position that's a non-union position that would be responsible. And that's the reason, the biggest reason for the additional deputy chief.
And with the with the amount that's listed here for FY '24, which was 190,080, can you tell me what the split was?
I would have to, yep, I can look it up. For the most part, what we did was we took 6 months of the current deputy's salary.
Okay.
That deputy wouldn't have his,
After his raise for this year?
that deputy wouldn't start off quite at the same rate,
Oh, no, but,
but that's how we calculated it in for right now.
all right, so you used half of the current deputy's salary for the 6 months that you're looking for the part-time, and
It was 130
Yes.
plus 60.
what was that?
I believe it was 130 for the current deputy plus 60 for the new deputy.
Okay, thank you.
That's from memory, but I believe that's.
Yeah,
the
but,
one.
well, that would, based on what's here, that would seem to be fairly close to the numbers. That was it for me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Joel, you have a question? Oh, Eric. Eric, you want to go first? Oh, Eric. Eric, you're next. There we go.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
You actually started to answer one of my questions earlier, which was really helpful. Thank you. In terms of the timeline coming through the academy, fieldwork, and then finally on staff. So you get the 5 in academy in August, and then the 2 extra months after that. So they're like fully on staff roughly March of next year?
Roughly, yes.
So then what level are they paid at during that period of time?
So they will, after they finish the academy, they will get a slight bump in their pay, but they're still not maxed out as a patrol officer until they've completed 1 full year.
Gotcha. So the 52 that we've got, the 52 FTEs that we've got in the budget, that's assuming all 10 of those vacancies for the entire fiscal year at the full-time salary? Is that right?
We've left it, they've been 52 funded for the last 2 years.
Gotcha.
I believe it's 2 years, definitely 1.
Okay.
And it's at that level. So we'll have some people getting a bump up with seniority and additional pay that they get, and then they will stay within that.
But definitely even some like coming in under that because
Correct.
they'll be in that
Yes.
pre-staff stage.
And there may be some that if we can, my goal is that there may be 1 or 2 that we hire from another department prior to August, that I'm hoping are in my interview process in the next few months, that would start after the fiscal year. 2 of the candidates potentially are already trained. So they would start at a little bit higher than the recruits or student officers that go in, because they're already trained, already academy trained, so we wouldn't have to send them to that.
So you feel like this gives you the wiggle room
Yes.
based on how any of that could go? So, because you got like 10 FTEs worth of budget there to work with. And I'm confident you have explained this before, so I'm going to apologize in advance for making you repeat information. Perfect world, what is the staffing number that is ideal for you when you look at the town of Stoughton, at least in terms of patrol?
So I think
Don't laugh
we
at me,
have
John.
proven that we need the 54 patrol officers with the volume in years past. That volume of, call volume has not changed. And many of the calls that officers are going on takes significantly more time than it used to. And it's just the additional component of mental health has been a significant part of most of our calls over the last 3 years. And the process to try and de-escalate or get them services that they may need has changed how we responded to our calls for service.
And so that actually also partially answered a follow-up question, because I was curious what kind of metric you use in terms of like determining that staffing number. It sounds like it's primarily call volume,
It's call volume, time on the calls.
workload,
And
essentially.
so it's not, you go to the call, you respond, you take that time, but then it's additional reports so when they're not on the street and they have to
Yeah.
do their reports afterwards and follow-ups and additional work.
So everything is paperwork.
Yes.
And then that actually made me think of then just another, in terms of the added burden of addressing, mental health calls, and having to ask your officers to almost be part-time social workers. Where's the town in terms of like discussions of trying to branch that off into an emergency response that is dedicated to mental health, so that your officers aren't bearing that burden in addition to law enforcement?
We're in the process of applying for DPH, embedded social worker in our program, in our department.
Did that come up last year?
We didn't get it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Great.
So we went
Not
for,
great, but
it was a different, we were competing against bigger communities, and we were on the smaller end for those, a small, considered Medford was one of the communities that got it over us. And we're in the process. We're working, my deputy chief is working with Stephanie Patton from our prevention protocols and an OASIS in a great grant opportunity that they're going for right now.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the question, Eric. Thank you, Chief McNamara, for explaining that. Joel, you have a question?
Everybody okay? Okay. Well, you actually asked one of the questions I was going to ask about mental health support. Okay. Currently, your budget shows 54 what you call patrol officers, but I know from prior conversations it's a combination of both patrol officers and detectives. Could you tell us what the split is on that, please?
So we have 6 full-time detectives that are dedicated specifically to the detective unit.
Are they only on one shift, Chief, or?
No, sir. They work days and evenings, so 8 to 4 and 4 to midnight. They're on a 4 and 2 schedule, rotating, so they work 7 days a week.
Okay, and the other question I had is, you're at 54 patrol officers, well, and detectives, whatever you want to call it. Eric asked the question, is that number suitable? My question is sort of similar to that. Is this sustainable over the next 2 or 3 years, or are we going to be looking at something going up or going down?
Well,
Or you can't guess?
I cannot guess, but I would say that I don't imagine that it would go down. I don't see our call volume reducing to that extent. So I would say if it's going to go anywhere, if we can't sustain it, it's going to go up.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm
And-
all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Additionally,
Very welcome.
Mr.
John, you have a
Can I-
follow-up?
Can I just add one more? Those,
Sure, Chief
that
McNamara.
includes the 2 SROs?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that, okay.
The 54 does.
Yes,
Now, when you say 6 detectives, are they all out of patrolmen?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
That's considered the patrol rank, the detective rank.
Okay,
We have one
I just wanted to make sure I had it right.
detective sergeant that is out of the superior officers grouping, but the rest of the detectives are out of the patrol ranks.
You do have one detective sergeant.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions? Bob, you have a question?
Just a quick one. What is minimum staffing?
So it's different depending on the day of the week and on the shift. So Monday, on the day shift, it'll be 5 patrol officers and 1 supervisor. On every evening shift, 4 p.m. to midnight, it is 5 patrol officers and at a minimum 1 supervisor. And then on the midnight shift, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it is 4 patrol officers, 1 supervisor. It goes up on the weekends for the days in the midnight shift.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'll send you an email.
Thank you. Do we have any, Jess, you have a question?
I am wondering, as you guys are thinking about the direction of the department moving forward, applying to get 1 social worker doesn't sound like it would actually address, the 30% increase across the board. And so has the town looked into more formally alternative emergency response programs as something to adopt for the new business model, where you might actually embed into the police department a whole, small staff of people who are trained and equipped specifically for that, so that the police could stay focused on calls where the police are receiving training, which is not necessarily appropriate to the mental health concerns and other issues that are emerging, where they're having to respond. So that's my first question. I have one other small one. Sorry, Vaughn.
Okay, so additionally, some of the opioid money that we're looking at is counselors as well. So it's a comprehensive approach that we're trying to look at with many of the mental health components. There is also a substance abuse component to much of that. So we're looking at the opioid money that the town is going to get, funding some of that with counselors and prevention work, as well as the mental health aspect. So it's a comprehensive approach, and that's why we're working with Steph Patton from Oasis on that.
That makes sense. It sounds like that would be an addition too, but I'm also just thinking about the fact that if we struggle to get to fill all of the spots with officers, wouldn't it help if we use some of the slots that we already have funded toward a different type of professional inside the police department?
Well, what we're seeing is additionally, I would say most calls we are going to respond to first. So it's the protocol that I've seen in many other police departments is the police officers initially respond, and then the
quicker
counselor
handoff
comes in
to
afterwards, and it may cut back on some of the time that the officer's on scene, but that's how the program has been working for a lot of communities. And they don't have a full-time, especially communities our size, bigger cities, smaller cities that are considered, 60,000. They're only having as much as 2, sometimes 3 on their staff. So with our call volume, I think it potentially could grow to a position where we're coming back in front of this board and funding that position, not just through a grant, but a full-time position. Typically, the way we've done things that I think has been most successful is we show the need, and then this board then provides what we need after that. So we have to show what we need.
Okay, thanks. And then in your initial comments, you had mentioned from the numbers of people that you were not able to hire, some of the vacancies were from resignations. You mentioned 2 resignations. I'm just curious about whether or not those were for people went to different towns or...
Nope. As of right now, some of the resignations were over the investigation.
It was. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you for the questions, Jess. Do we have any other questions, comments? Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn.
You're welcome.
I just have a comment, and I have very high support for this budget, and because of the leadership that we have in our police department. And I think that it's important to emphasize, after knowing everybody's seen all the background of the tough times that we've headed into, is the fact that if you remember 6 years ago, we used to have a chief, his name was Shastany, and everybody, he came he was like one of the highest rated chiefs that ever came through this town. He was, he was seasoned, everything. And when he had to leave, he left a blessing behind, which was an extremely strong recommendation to bring our chief McNamara into this position. And when that recommendation came, there wasn't even any hesitation. We knew that if that kind of recommendation came in, that we had to get Chief McNamara in this position. And what we're recognizing now is that she's already taken all the steps necessary to kind of get past all the negativity, because we're seeing a cleansing of it. It's a long road to get any kind of public relations things done. So we just need to be extremely patient. And my hat's off. I fully support our police department and this budget because of the kind of leadership we have today.
Thank you for the comments, Dave.
Thank you, David.
John, you have a question?
I had one more follow-up. You had mentioned earlier about some towns have left civil service. Have you given that any consideration? And if so, what would it take to do that?
I have. It's a significant labor relations issue. And I believe that if that comes up in future negotiations with the town manager, we'll be able to deal with that appropriately. And then it has to go in front of town meeting. If that's the way the town brought it in, that's how it has to be brought out.
Right, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't we do that with DPW?
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
They withdrew, but it did have to come through. I didn't know, I assumed it was a similar process, but.
Yes, it would be the similar process. So if we had to do it at, an annual town meeting or a fall town meeting.
Or the fall one.
Or the
It's
fall.
not special anymore.
Yep.
It's always there, so.
So we could do that if we get to that point, and I'm sure that it'll be something that we look into during our negotiations in the next
Sure.
contracts.
I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do, but thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, we have any more questions or comments from the committee on the police budget? Any questions or comments from the public on the police budget? Please identify yourself for the record, Cynthia.
My lack of a microphone is not a disability. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. Obviously, I have a bias. 2 of my siblings were Stoughton police officers, and 5 of my cousins were in law enforcement in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. I think it's unrealistic to think that a town like Stoughton, and there are many towns in Massachusetts even smaller than Stoughton, we just can't afford our police department and a mental health division. And I really think the state needs to step in, just as we have a kind of a district-wide crisis team, SWAT team kind of situation. If you have a hostage situation in your town or really serious problem, and they come in. And I think the state is under an obligation to recruit social workers, recruit mental health employees, train them, I guess you'd call it cross-training, so that they can stay safe. Because we all want to save the world, but sometimes the world is armed and dangerous. But then if we have a call where it's obvious an individual is beyond reasoning, that we meaning our police officers, could step back, keep the other people safe as they can, call on this crisis team or whatever you want to call them to come in and handle the negotiations, the calming, or whatever it takes to get this individual to accept help. I really think it's unrealistic for the country as a whole to think that every department is going to have, next to the dispatcher, a mental health person. Even when my sister was on, starting in the 80s, mental health issues have been huge for decades. She said that she wished more of her training had been in social work type things, that many times she felt like she was a social worker. People call the police not because their bank is being robbed or someone is breaking into their house, at least in Stoughton. What's happening is their teenage son has gone off the rails. He's throwing the family dog against the wall. He's threatening to harm the rest of the family. There's just situations that I've heard about because I'm related to those people that you can't imagine are happening in little old country town Stoughton. And we just can't handle it ourselves. It has to be more of a district-wide thing.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public on the police budget? Hearing none, we'll go to the animal control budget. Page 20. 28. Thank you.
Okay, I will address this. I manage the animal control officer, our current animal control officer's that been there for more than a year and a half now. She is fantastic, very good at her job, came to us through a veterinary hospital, and she is someone that we very much rely on. She does a lot of great things, not just with domestic animals, but with wildlife, and has rescued some very unusual animals and brought them to a place that they could rehab and have more of a life. So I cannot say enough great things about animal control officer. She really does do a great resource for this town.
All right. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? Mark?
I know that we have one full-time. What are the hours that they work?
She works 8 to 4, Monday through Friday.
Okay, because there's a lot of off-leash dogs in a lot of our parks, areas, streets, neighborhoods, and it doesn't happen during that time because everybody's at work. So a lot of it goes unnoticed, or there's nobody actually enforcing it. Is there a way to have her switch hours to when people are home and doing things so that those can be enforced?
Well, I would say that significantly, some of the issues that the animal control officer deals with is not just the domestic animals.
Right.
So, she does inspections, kennel inspections, barn inspections. There are a lot of things you wouldn't think that the animal control officer does as an animal inspector for the community. So there's a wide variety of job description within her job description that she does.
Well, should we bring in a part-time person to cover hours during the evening or on the weekends?
That has been taken out in years past.
But is it warranted and needed?
Many times we as police department, they call us.
I was gonna say, how many calls?
Put them in the shelter, when we have a loose dog, and the animal control officer will address it the next day.
But what are the amount of calls for?
I don't have a number that I can give to you right now. I can look into it.
If you would, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions, comments? John?
In the past, the animal control officer, on some downtime, would be doing ticketing. Is that still the case, or is she just too busy? I mean, I've actually used her, I've, called her, needed her assistance, and found her to be very professional and very pleasant to deal with, which is always good to see with the people.
So we did a little outside the box thinking a few years back, when we had a previous animal control
Yeah.
officer enforcing parking in the Stoughton Center. But in the past year, I would turn to Mark and let Mark explain some of the additional duties that she has helped out with in the town.
Thank you.
Good handoff, yeah. Yeah, no, Michelle, the dog officer, has been doing the code enforcement duties. She's been getting a stipend to do that. We had our longtime code enforcement officer, Dana, leave, I don't know, about 6 to 8 months ago, in that range. Quite frankly, what we've been doing is we've had a couple administrative positions to fill first. We've been prioritizing those. A town planner, and our next full-time position we're posting very soon will be the code enforcement officer, permanent position. I've spoken to Michelle. She's great. She's actually very good at it, but it's not in her career path to continue doing that, but she's certainly helped us out tremendously. Really good person, very good communicator. So unfortunately, it's not in her career path to continue doing that.
Right. Thank you for that. We have any other questions or comments from the committee on the animal control budget? Hearing none, we have any questions or comments from the public on the animal control budget? Hearing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is central dispatch. 23, thank you very much, Mr. Anzavino.
Dispatch.
Okay, so I think you probably have what was initially put in for dispatch, and there's been some adjustments to that budget where four positions have been reduced with the intent to move the central dispatch to eventually to a regional dispatch. Initially, it was submitted for $400,000, almost $500,000 budget for the central dispatch, and that's been reduced down to $294,234. With the intent to eventually move central dispatch over to the regional.
What was that number you just gave?
I believe it's 294,
Is
234.
that after the second change? Putting two back until September?
No.
No.
If you're looking at the
Nope.
budget, there's no adjustment there.
Because the initial had all 9.
Correct.
The first change that was put forth was to take 4. And then on 314, the board is now requested to take
And 2 back.
2 of them back in until September 30th.
That's correct.
And that was, I believe that was given as $25,714 add-on. Because what I had from the January removal of the 4, it took off $204,484. And then, just from the other day, they put the $25,714 back in. So,
So if I may, John, additionally, we still intend on applying for our state 911 grant. Usually, we are granted roughly $106,000. And we intend to still apply for that, not knowing exactly when the moves will take place. So we still intend to go forth with that.
Excuse me, a point of information, if you don't mind.
I wanted to
First question was the amount of 294 something, but she didn't get to finish saying what the number was.
She gave the number.
294,000 what?
234.
234. That's all I needed. Thank you.
I just wasn't sure where that number came from, but, so if you got the grant, would that be to try and fund additional people here?
It'll be to fund wherever we're at, depending on when we get the grant, when they hand out the rewards.
Okay.
And where we are in the process.
All right, and I guess I'll go there. I don't care, I'll go there. I know back a ways, a little bit in time, that the board was going to meet about this with the central dispatch. They tabled that at the time. They said they had just got some information. I believe the information was an 89-page report submitted by the chief of police. And at that time, from what I recall after reading it, you were not in favor of the move to central dispatch. And I don't know if something's, if things have transpired that have changed your mind, because my understanding is, what is it, the PSAP? I almost said PFAS, but, because that's in the water. But the PSAP would go with it. And I thought from reading the report that takes a bit, and we won't get into the whole regionalization, I guess, because that's, outside of here. But I'm just curious, when I read that report, you seem to be pretty dead set against the move, so.
Well, yes, I believe that both police and fire and the PSAP should remain in the department, in the police department. Once the PSAP is moved, any funding would go with it. So, and additional infrastructure that could potentially come our way goes to the regional. So that is, the initial talk was fire dispatch going and the PSAP. And my response with that report was, I was against losing the PSAP and dispatching. I will defer to the town manager with some of the additional things that is being put on the table from the regional process and go into a regional dispatch.
Yes, like I said, I read your report, and I believe it was requested of you to do that. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot with your boss here.
It's quite all right.
But,
We've had plenty of discussions on
We
this.
talk about it every day.
I'm sure
Day.
you've talked to him, so.
Donna and
I
I-
expected an honest answer, so, as I say, it was just, when I read the report, and my thought is, once it's gone, it's gone. You won't get it back, so.
You are correct.
Anyways, if,
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes, Mr. Carlton.
Let me fill in the missing blanks, and there's no problem talking about it with Donna and I. We talk about this issue and with Chief Carroll almost every day. When I arrived here, the fire department had done tremendous research on the features and benefits of going to regional 911, and they believed, and I quickly agreed, that was in the best interest of the fire department. Donna has long been on record as saying that splitting up the PSAP is not good because of the delay it would cause if one department stayed back here. In the last 3 months, Donna and I and Chief Carroll have visited Regional 911 several times.
Half a dozen anyway.
Half a dozen anyways. I think you know by now that with me, I don't deal well with information that is not factual. I believe in, thought that was me. I have a sugar thing and it goes off, and that's what I needed earlier. So we were dedicated to going there and researching it for ourselves, as opposed to all of us depending upon people's opinions that may or may not belong to Regional 911. As you'll hear me say 1,000 times, facts are friendly. So we did our research. We went in there and we met with them. Our dispatchers have been there to meet with them. We've set up conference calls and in-person meetings with the dispatchers themselves to research the benefits to them for going there. We've spent a lot of time communicating, gathering information, gaining information. I asked the board to suspend this and put it on hold the week I arrived until we were able to collect all of the pertinent information. When I had all that information, I made the decision, it is my decision to make, that we're going to move to Regional 911. There's a number of reasons I've made that decision. We can't have one go and not the other. So it's either both or none. Donna, being an extraordinary leader and manager, committed herself over the past 3 months to learn everything she could learn about it, has communicated with chiefs from other departments who have done it and have done it successfully, and informed me a couple of weeks ago she would rather go than to have the PSAP separated from the police department. So the decision 2 weeks ago was made to go, with me signing a letter of attestation to enter into communication and negotiation with Regional 911. The reason the timing is so important is the town is in need of millions of dollars of capital investment in technology, in communication technology. We don't have millions of dollars to invest in technology. The citizens of Stoughton deserve the best technology we can buy. As you know, Stoughton was among one of the last 3 or 5 communities to enter the state 911 in 1993, I believe. We're not quick to change in this town. And technology is not something I understand. So the folks from Regional 911 were at our police and fire department last week in force to go through all of the technical advancements and upgrades that we need and we deserve in the police, in the fire departments, in our school, in town hall, including generators, communications. It's probably going to be north of $5 million. And the reason for the change in the budget is when we first decided to go there, they gave us a target date of July 1st. So we reduced the dispatcher's budget by 4, because at that time it was just the police, just the fire that were going. After reducing that budget, 2 things happened. The first thing is the chief made a command decision that the police department will join. And the second thing that happened is we were notified that it wouldn't be July 1st. It would be closer to the end of September. That was what necessitated us adding 2 back in, because it won't be till the end of September. In addition to that, as you've got from your handout there, and I hope you've got the right one that I handed you today. It was handed to me walking out of the office. We are having a fact-based, fact-driven public information session for the benefit of all community members to come and understand why we're doing it, what the cost benefit is, what the technology benefits are, what the training benefits are. And we're offering the positions to our current dispatch staff to move over there. We know of at least 3 and possibly 4 of the 6 we have now are interested in doing that. We're also going to keep at least 2 or possibly 3 dispatchers back here until all the wrinkles are worked out. Dawn is working on the management plan for integration. The last thing I would say is we need to, in addition to community input and information, again, based on fact, not the misinformation that I am confronted with on a daily basis on a number of issues. Based upon fact, we have to go through impact bargaining with our patrolmen's union and with our dispatch union, and we're in the process of doing that now. We're in negotiation with every one of our unions to bring the contracts up to date, and the 2 most significant or challenging ones are going to be impact bargaining with those 2 unions. And what that means is we have an obligation to work with and negotiate with any members of the patrolmen's union and the dispatch union to address and resolve any substantial impact on them and to address it. And so that's what we're in the process of doing. We do know that those dispatchers will earn more money, will have a 4-day work week, will have a higher matching insurance program as part of the regional dispatch. Ever since they've gone over there and learned, we've gone from no one wanting to go over there to 3, possibly 4 wanting to go over there. When they've learned about the technology, they've learned about the benefits, they got excited about it. When the community understands the type of financial investment that the state will make in the town of Stoughton to give the citizens of Stoughton the best technology and communications we can possibly have, anything that has anything to do with 911. We could make an argument that because we use the library as a warming center, we're going to make the request that generator be part of this 911 grant. We've requested generators, and they've recommended generators at a number of locations within the town, as well as fiber optics to connect us with them. And so that's how we got to where we are. It's a process of communication and information, and we're not going to allow anything to get in the way of giving the police officers and the citizens all the information they desire so that they understand this opportunity before the town right now. Last comment, we have it on pretty good information from the legislature that within 5 years, every town is going to be mandated to join a regional 911. And it may not be a funded mandate, it may be an unfunded mandate, like we're used to.
Like they're, yeah.
So this money that is being made available to us right now through this opportunity may not be there 5 years from now when we're mandated to join a regional. Now, there's a lot been said about the building, Armory building. When we first met with 911, Mike and Donna and I, we made the Armory building available to them because they're planning a second regional dispatch. So although there were 7 other communities competing for the Armory building, we are making a strong pitch with Regional 911, and I'm making a strong pitch with Department of Public Safety and the Governor's Administration to put that in Stoughton. That would be a huge benefit to us. The building would be knocked down, and a new state-of-the-art regional dispatch center would be built. When we go to 911, we'll have a series of redundancies that Stoughton doesn't have right now. We have no backup system, no redundancies. There's been a number of times that both chiefs have briefed me on, this town has been in a dangerous situation without communication, either through a storm or otherwise. And they, because of the extraordinary people they have working there, they dealt with it in a number of different ways. When we join Regional 911, there will be backup to backup to backup. And potentially, that Armory building will be the next Regional 911. I don't want to confuse people and say that's part of the deal. It's not. It would be the topping on the cake to have that in Stoughton. And I'm working very hard with the chief and Chief Carroll to make our best argument for putting that in Stoughton.
It would be nice. We started
great.
talking about that in 2009
So,
to try and do a, regional there, but.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for affording me all that time.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
But just to follow, if that's the case, I guess the question then becomes, first of all, I agree, if one goes, they should both go. I don't believe that they should be split. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Whether it stays here or goes, I think they need to stay together. Even though I know a lot of towns have split that are over there, which doesn't seem to make sense to
And
me.
they do have delays, John,
And it doesn't make sense to me.
because they're split.
Now, you've only asked to keep 7 till September. So if you're not anticipating going in until that time, if we're only keeping 7, what about the other 2? They're just not filled right now.
They're unfilled positions.
Okay.
And we're operating on a staff of 6.
Right, all right. So, but you're looking for we'll say, we're looking for a certain amount of money here that would cover a full year. And then part-time, the other, you only put 2 back until September.
Right.
But does this money actually, that you're looking at, would that count for all the dispatchers that are here, just going through September?
I think I can clarify this. We put back the 2 that are currently employed by us. We zeroed out the 2 that are unfilled.
Okay,
Does that
but,
answer-
does this budget only carry all the dispatchers through September? Or
Those 2,
just 2?
those 2
The other 4
are fully funded.
for the year?
Yeah, the target date, John, the target date to move over at this point.
And I know that's,
We don't know.
yeah.
It's when
All
the
right.
grant comes in. The target date right now, if I have it correct, was October 1st and February
goal.
1st of next year. It's a goal. There are the factors that go into it. By next week, we'll have the technology budget. Then they have to make the grant to the state. And when that grant from the state comes back, and that's how they fund all the partners, we would get free dispatch for the people that go over there for the first 3 years, which reduces the budget by over $500,000.
All right, so right now you'd be having 4 full-time in the budget, 4 full-time for the year.
Are we referring to the budget from 117? I
The
want to be
budget that you're
clear.
looking at, the hard copy, before we add anything back in,
Date on that budget, though. Because
3/7/2003.
that's an
23.
incorrect budget that you're looking
That's
at.
the
then.
wrong, that's a budget that,
That's why I wanted to clarify that, because I
that's a
could see this
budget that had
conversation.
been revised from what was voted.
I'm not going to tell you who gave it to me.
I gave you the other one. I gave you
But this is why I'm asking, right? Because the original budget, just for the 9 dispatchers, was 498,718. In January, it was requested to
Oh,
remove
John, I'm sorry,
4.
excuse me. This is when we printed this new one. So, no, this is the right budget. But if this
That's
is,
dated 3/7.
I printed it last week.
What's the number on the bottom
If
of
it's
it?
dated 3/7, it's got different numbers than the one that was voted in January.
What's the dollar
No,
amount?
I've gone through it.
Mark, do you have the dollar amount?
Yeah, right on the front page.
No, the dollar amount under the select board line for the dispatch. What's the dollar amount, total dollar amount? Make sure we're all on the same page
Just
here.
look at the total, grand total general fund.
What is it?
Look at the total general.
No. All we're talking about is dispatch.
I know, but the number of the total budget would be different.
Okay, on the dispatch page, what's the total dollar amount that's there for the budget? Is it 853,772? Well, that's why I want to be
That's the
clear
old-
what
that's the old
we're talking about here. Because this is why we asked Mr. O to not print out additional
budget.
budgets.
We're just printing out the last iteration of the budget that you got.
That's why I want to clarify, what's the dollar amount on that budget?
This is driving me out of my mind.
This is
Just
why,
Not you.
this is why we
What's
need
the
one
total
new budget.
budget for dispatch? It's at the bottom of the page. What's the total number for dispatch?
649,288.
No, it's 853,772. Because that's what was voted in January.
That's why I asked this, because when Mr. Anzavino started asking about, well, funding 3 months and all that, I could kind of foresee we're talking about two different
Right.
things.
Well, the funding, that was the request from the other day. From January, they asked to remove 4, which was going to reduce it by 204,484. On the 14th, they said, oh, we need to put 2 back in through the 30th. And that was to add 25,714 back in. So this is why I'm trying to get what number they're thinking of, because right now, you're going to have 9 dispatchers, and you're going to have 1 administrator that's in the budget that we're going to be voting about. We've had requests to make changes, so I'm trying to figure out, with the changes you've made, what's your line now for
So let me-
the civilian
We need Bill now.
dispatches?
These are his numbers. We're
This
gonna
is
get
why
Bill
we
Logan.
asked to not have repeat budgets printed, because this is what
This
happened.
is what happened.
Years ago, we used to get a budget every week, and it was different. and-
Vaughn, the only change, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The only changes we're proposing beyond the budget that came before you are the ones on this list. I apologize that Bill Rowe decided this was a good week to take not a vacation, a convention. These are Bill Rowe's numbers. We will get him here and we'll explain it. Let me please, I'm sorry I'm frustrated because I'm not used to being embarrassed over budgets. So let me explain this to you. There are 9 people, if I have it right, in the budget for dispatch.
That's
plus-
correct.
Plus 1 supervisor, for a total of 10. When we decided on 911, we reduced it by 4 bodies, okay?
For dispatchers.
4 dispatches, okay? When we realized it was going to be delayed, we still held off on the 2 that were not filled, and we don't intend to fill them. What I asked to be put back in was 2 dispatchers through the end of September,
Yep.
all right? And, you know, if Mr. Rowe's listening, I apologize for exposing this. I'm just not used to dealing with numbers that keep moving around.
Because based on what the board did on the 14th, based on this chart, that the new number would be 319,948. That's what would be in for the dispatcher line.
We're
Never
gonna-
mind the number, but that's what's on this sheet. That's what the board voted to request,
John, your point is well taken.
okay? No, I'm just saying
We're
that.
going to get him here to help us
Well,
understand.
when Donna mentioned 294, 234, I didn't know where that number even came from.
That's,
And,
that's the
and I'll tell you
additional.
what it was. My guess is the 294, 234 is what you're seeing in the 3.7 budget.
Yes, correct. And that was what was given to us.
All
As
right,
department.
so,
We're gonna have to get the actual number on this.
so
Joel,
right now, but right now, that's what they've requested. That's what the board sent us as a request, was 319,948.
We apologize.
That included the 25,714 add back.
So what's the bottom line again?
The bottom line is, for that line, they are asking for 319,948.
The total at the bottom, 850.
Well, it would be whatever the difference is from 498,718 and 319,948. And I'm not gonna do it right now, because I don't know where we're gonna end up.
Joel, did you have a question here?
Are you okay, John?
Yeah, and the program administrator is
All right, I got you.
full-time, right? The program admin is in there for the full year regardless.
Yes, but that position is currently vacant,
Yeah, but the budget.
but it's in the
budget's-
budget,
All right.
because we
Thank-
use,
Thank you very much.
Joel?
John, are you all set?
I'm all set.
Chief, could you tell me where the new central dispatch is going to be?
I mean, the region.
I mean, I know there's a couple
When it-
places that are around. But I know there's one in, I think, Norwood or
So
Walpole
the
or,
regional is in Holbrook,
is in Holbrook?
yes.
Okay, all right. That's the one that we're going to join?
The regional, yes, that we're working with currently right now is in Holbrook.
Okay, so once we do that, as far as the town is concerned, at some point in time, will we be as part of our budget, will we be contributing to that? I think, if I understand, it's currently under a state grant to get us over there. This got very confusing.
It's part of State 911, the regional, but it would be 3 years that the town would not have to pay. And
That's what I
starting-
needed to hear.
Starting in the
Okay.
4th year, there
All
would be
right,
a
so there are
percentage.
3 years that the town doesn't have to pay, but the state will, and then we take it over?
Gradually over the next 3 years.
All
Percentage.
right, and what is it? Is it a contribution to some fund somewhere? Is that the idea?
The funding source is not a grant, well, it is a grant for them. It's an ongoing funded source by the state in their attempt to force or incent every town to join regional 911 system. So that's the objective. It's an ongoing funding source. So the first 3 years, whatever dispatches we send over there, they pay 100% of.
No, that I understand, yeah.
After that, it's then 50%, 75%, and then 100% by the 6th year.
Okay,
For the capital investment, there's no payback.
all right, but at the 100% of the 6th year, it all gets paid for by the town of Stoughton, correct?
That's correct. We go
And-
back to our expense.
Okay, is it a contribution to a general fund somewhere, or do we actually paying dispatches on payroll?
Sure, they come off of our payroll.
Okay,
We would pay the regional 911 system, which is run through the town of Holbrook.
all right,
How
so
many
we
dollars
pay
is
for the
that?
regional,
I've-
we pay for the regional once it gets to that point. Okay?
We
And-
pay for our
Our
portion.
portion of it, yeah, I understand that, okay? So when they go to work for the regional, they absorb all the salaries, the benefits,
Pension.
pensions, everything.
They become their employees.
Okay, are they employees of the town of Holbrook? or-
Yes, they
Yes.
are.
Oh, wow.
And if we were to do a regional 911, they would be employees of the town of Stoughton. And trust me, they don't do it as a contribution. There's a benefit to them. I'm sorry, Vaughn.
I
we-
just
we
have
clearly
a
don't
kind of
have
a
those-
straight-up question. You're saying 3 years free, then a phase-in over 3 years. At the end of the day, the 6 years, we're paying the full dollar amount. What's that number?
Whatever they're paid plus benefits. We haven't got to that point yet. We've got what's called a, what is it called?
We don't know what it's going to cost
Attestation.
on the 6th
An
year.
attestation, that allows us to get into negotiation, which starts next week. So we don't have that information available yet. We're still negotiating it. We know it's a 50, 75, and then 100% by the 6 years.
That's what I'm asking, what that dollar amount is 100, but we don't know that number.
We can't have that
Okay.
yet.
All right,
It'll be
great.
dependent upon what they're paid then as well.
All right. Thank you. All right. Yes, Diane, do you have a question?
I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think to Tom,
I'm sorry.
if this goes and at the end of those 3 years, how are they going to determine what, will it be split up by town? Like if Holbrook has more calls than we do in this town, is it going to be anything like
No,
that?
it's not about calls.
Okay.
It's a good question. It's about the people in general that we send over there. If we send 4 people, whatever their fully loaded salary is at that time will be charged to us as an assessment. They would still be their employees. They won't come back here as employees. They'll be in their retirement system, which is still Norfolk County. But no, it'd be an assessment that we're just getting to that now. Once we sign this agreement, they start giving us what's called an intercommunity agreement that spells all those things out, and I'll certainly present it to this board as immediately as when I have it.
All right.
This committee,
great.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on the central dispatch? Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you. I just wanted to make a comment. You know, it's not just that the departments are going through a lot of leadership changes. The Finance Committee is also going through a lot of leadership changes. So our process back in the day, and you know, I've been in my 7th year now, we've always had a fluid process of going through change and iteration upon iteration upon iteration. That's not new at all. But at the time, the leadership had the more of a different kind of approach, which was, let's bring to the Finance Committee, you know, like a back of the napkin idea of like, oh, the changes look like this, and here's what a balanced budget would look like if we adopt these kinds of changes. The changes, and I'm totally fine with changes in leadership and philosophy about it, which is to lock in the voted select board's budget and then reconcile it within our deliberations here. The thing that kind of drives me a little bit nuts is that the other thing that changed, and by the way, I understand, and I actually, you know, even though I'm the only one who wanted subcommittees, it was voted against, but I don't even think the departments wanted subcommittees, because while there's been a lot of craziness going on in this kind of a budget year, we were kind of constrained with time that we could devote ourselves as well. So it was kind of a mutual thing. But when you get back to subcommittees, you kind of iron these things out. It kind of softens a lot of the confusion, chaos, and stuff so it's almost like the subcommittee work gets brought into the open Finance Committee meetings instead. The other benefit of a subcommittee, it kind of
Excuse me,
trains
Mr. Laurie, is this a central
It's
dispatch
very relevant
question?
because there's a lot of.
Just want to
there's
keep
a lot
on
of
central dispatch.
I'm just addressing the contention that happens and why it gets confusing, because I think it's important for the public to understand why it gets confusing like this.
Is it because we're not staying on topic, possibly?
No, I'm getting this out because
All right,
there's
thank
been
you.
a shift and a change in the way we do business, and it's fine. I'm totally good with change. I'm just trying to explain why it's different, why it's chaotic. And the other thing that happens in a subcommittee, you're also training future leaders in Finance Committee. We don't have that, so we don't have those mini meetings in which a leader kind of gets used to how to run an open meeting kind of thing. So we miss out on that, but I hope someday we do get back to that when it makes more sense. I want to get that out, but I do have
Is there a
technical.
point where we're going to get back to
I
central
have
dispatch? That would be
technical
great,
questions.
Dave.
I have
Thank you.
I have
Please,
I
please
wanted
say
to
that.
say my piece.
You
Thank
said
you for the-
you
thank
said
you
your
for
piece.
your-
I've given you a lot of
thank
latitude
you-
to speak
thank you
well
for your
beyond the
pa-
central dispatch
Thank
budget.
you for your patience. I appreciate it. I came out of the telecom industry. I recently left the industry so I could speak freely about this. The PSAP is like an inbound kind of process where a 911 call, it comes in, it shows up in now Holbrook. Holbrook then has to make an outbound call. The infrastructure that we used to invest in, as far as I remember, that there's these Motorola's, we used to buy a ton of them, and there's also infrastructure in the town that lets these towers allow for a private communication between fire, police, that it was all kind of locked down and there wasn't any outside intrusion into that kind of network. How does an outbound call from Holbrook land inside of a patrol car to be able to respond to a thing. Is it still private, and are we still using the infrastructure that was already invested, that was already built out with that wireless communication?
Well, thank you for the question,
I
Dave.
have a follow-up to that, too.
So part of the infrastructure that the regional would be bringing into the community is the fiber optics and additional. We would utilize our radio infrastructure as the secondary, as a redundancy, but we would also utilize the infrastructure of the regional in their microwave and repeaters all around Norfolk County. So that adds to our reception and our infrastructure. But we would be primarily on all of their infrastructure, utilizing our secondary stuff that we've already invested in our community as the redundancy.
So then we become redundant, which
Yes.
we're lacking at the moment. Okay. The other question has to do with, does the regional use FirstNet as a private network that's also intergovernmental, where you could get state, federal communication? It's ties in all the layers of public safety all the way up through intergovernmental.
Yes, they do.
They're already tied in with that. So we adopt then through them the same capabilities that are there with FirstNet.
Yes.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lurie. Thank you, Chief McNamara. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee on the central dispatch budget? Hearing none, do we have any questions or comments from the public on the central dispatch budget?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment, please.
Yes.
I want to acknowledge the frustration of the committee on a lack of clarity on the numbers. That's unacceptable, and I apologize for that. I also want to comment, however, just briefly on what Mr. Lurie just said. If we were a town right now that was stagnant, just keep the potholes filled, keep the trains running on time, then we could close the budget process in December and all the way up to the May town meeting. But that's not the reality in Stoughton right now, and I'd ask for a little bit of leeway. We've got so many major challenges that affect our budget, and also some very substantial opportunities, like this one, that affect our budget. We can't stop the budget process and freeze it, and that's the reason for these add-backs. Some of them are school assessments. We can't control that they come in after we close this budget. So there would have been this sheet just for assessments alone if you didn't reopen the budget to add these back in. The other things like Regional 911, like contractual relations. One of them is a laborer that we're under contract and subject to grievance if we don't fill the spot. All I'm saying is that we're not afforded the luxury of just stopping the budget process and then going from there. We're a very active, hardworking town right now, town administration, and there are major challenges that have to be addressed that can't wait 6 months from now, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now. I just ask the indulgence of the committee to appreciate that these are very unusual times. Everybody acknowledges it, but we can't stop the trains long enough to get a hard number. That's no excuse for you not having good numbers today.
Right.
And I apologize for that.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Did you have something on this, John?
No, I thought you were going to move on.
Thank you very much. Hearing no comments, public comments in central dispatch, we're going to move to the next item here on the agenda, Article 48, Police Capital. We have police station upgrades. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so we have put in capital to improve the community room, the training room that we utilize. It's, most of the furniture in there is from when we opened up in 1998 in the police department. Some of the technology, the smart board and projector is in need of upgrading. That's about 11 years old. So that is the upgrades to the police department, just that community room. And additionally, I know it's under facilities, some upgrades to, and I think Paul Jaffoon will address that.
Yeah, that'll be next week. Mr. Jaffoon will be here. There's a separate article. So this article here is essentially to renovate that community room at the police department, including furniture, whatever the renovations, new technology, better Wi-Fi, whiteboards or smart boards, whatever they're called.
Correct.
Okay. We have any questions or comments from the committee? Joel?
Yeah, Chief, is the facilities budget gonna, I think you wanted to address something with the locker rooms. Is that gonna be in the facilities budget, or? Do
That's in the facilities budget, and we'll be next week for the locker, just the
Okay.
female locker room.
you have any backup for what you just talked about? Because I didn't see any that we got. We got two things for Article 48. One is for the police cruiser.
We actually got three. We had the radios, the vehicles, and the video equipment.
Oh, I haven't seen that third one then. Okay. My
I'll send it to you
apologies.
if you don't
Okay.
have it. But we had radios, vehicles, and video equipment, which are for the cruisers. The station upgrades is, we don't have anything on the station upgrades, just that it was 75,000.
Correct.
If you do have anything on that,
So we just recently, and I was going to bring it, but then I know that you didn't want handouts, so I was going to send it by email.
Please do.
Something that Fran Brunetti was able to get for some of the furniture. She just recently got that quote. So I'll send that by email. I know you didn't want the
if you send
handouts.
if you send it
Perfect.
to us, we'll get it out to the
Perfect.
committee.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Donna.
So the only other that I'm trying to get is just for the locker room part is I haven't gotten from Tiffin, which is the company that we currently have lockers in the locker rooms. I just don't have that quote yet.
That's right.
for the
Maybe we'll
Tiffin.
have it by next week, though.
So
We're not
hopefully.
doing that till next
But
week.
I'll email it to you
All
when I
right,
get it.
great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee on Article
48.
48? Okay, you have another question?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The new vehicle,
Yes.
is it just one?
No, 3? We just get a quote for one, and and we'll get the same type of vehicle.
Are you getting Explorers or?
We've had difficulty getting the Explorers. It's taking more than a year, so we've had better luck getting Tahoes.
Tahoes are nice, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
They are a shop vehicle, so,
I think you guys don't use trash trucks.
so.
Any other questions or comments from the committee on Article 48, the police station upgrades part? Adam?
Dave.
Yeah, so I was just wondering just the logic behind upgrading the 3 vehicles. I don't know if is it, a certain number of mileage or maintenance or what it is. And I think we get on a rotational program of
Yes, sir.
upgrading, but I don't want to replace vehicles that don't need it, though. I know you get a rotation, but and that cash flow
so
syncs
what-
up nicely. But if you don't need it, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
So these vehicles run consistently, pretty significantly. The wear and tear on them, and what we've found, and we've got on a really good replacement policy, which is the policy that was started about 9 years ago with the town, and policy for emergency vehicles that are consistently used is 80,000 miles. And pretty much that's what we stick by. Sometimes we get rid of a car that is a little bit sooner than the 3 years because of, maybe it's been in a serious accident, or it's just, sometimes we get lemons and we're putting too much into it. So we really make a last-minute decision on the vehicles that we get rid of. So I'm currently getting in from last year's budget 3 vehicles right now, and we will make a game time decision of which vehicles we trade in at that point, which ones are the worst ones that we're dealing with. Consistently, they're pretty much 80,000 or more miles, and they're pretty worn out. And it just becomes more costly to continue to repair them and keeping them.
So I don't know if the maintenance is done in-house, I would assume, but is there some sort of tracking mechanism?
So
for
some of the maintenance is, some of the routine maintenance we send out because our DPW just cannot handle some of the volume of our cruisers. And the major stuff we try to send to dealerships and track that.
So do you have that data?
I don't have that data.
You do not?
I do not.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right. We have any other Eric, you have a question?
Just a quick one, and it's probably a Bill question anyway, so apologies. I think last year, new cruisers ended up being cash, right? Does anybody remember?
I believe it was.
The year before it was bonding, so I was just curious if we expect, what we might expect on funding on this one, if we're going to need to bond it, or if we should wait for Bill to come back from his conference.
That would absolutely be
Okay.
a good
We'll
question.
sort that
where they
out
think
later.
that-
Yeah.
Great, thank you, that's all.
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It's a question I bring up, I think, ever since they went to what I describe as strobe lights on top of these vehicles. When you go to buy them, I just want to know, how close are they being to, I mean, I literally have to look away because they're just so obnoxious when I get anywhere near a police vehicle with their lights going. I just don't think that it's appropriate to have strobe lights because there are some people who have seizures. It could induce a seizure if you have strobe lights. And it seems like really, if it's not a strobe light, it's really, really close to one. Is there any safety data about having that kind of light, and can you downgrade to something that's a little easier for people to say, hey, there's a police cruiser coming, I know it is, but it doesn't have to be a strobe to tell me, I just kind of know that I see blue lights, I know that I have to pull over.
So, Dave, I wish everybody thought the way you do, as far as seeing emergency lights and they decide to pull over and abide by that, but that's just not what we experience on a daily basis. Most people do not yield to our emergency lights, whether they're blue or they're red. So it's a significant issue, but this is the state of the art, what we get in our cruisers each year. When we purchase them, it's what the latest industry standard is.
Well, thank you for the question, Dave. Thank you very much, Chief McNamara, for the answer. Elliot, do you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say
Yes, turn on the mic for people at home.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. No, I was just going to comment a little bit because Dave, he brought up a really good point, but they do have what they call smart strobes that at night they go way down so that they don't blind, because, I mean, there's times, and I'm sure that's happened to many people besides myself, that there'll be a cruiser with the strobe lights, and there'll be an officer there directing traffic, but the lights are so bright that you can't see the officer. And you come dangerously close to dusting the poor devil. So, which is really bad form anyway.
Do you have a question on that, Elliot?
But, yeah, there are smart strobes that at night, they sense the ambient light and they come down so it isn't quite so obtrusive. But you may want to look into that. Or
There's a trade show coming April 12th, and I'll be at that, so I will look into that.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Chief McNamara. John, you have a question?
Oh, just to follow up to Adam, the Select Board has a policy on vehicles that they voted a number of years back, and that's what the departments tend to follow now. And if you want, I'm sure Mr. Colt is going to take a note to get us the Select Board policy on vehicles.
I believe it's 3 cruisers every year,
Yeah.
if I remember the policy correctly.
But well, it's based on historical data that they decided to do this. And similar to, you can't pass the cars on anymore because you became a green community. You can't just pass them on. You trade them in, you do this, that. That was the agreement that was made. But so Mr. Coulter will send us, and we'll send that out to the rest of the board.
All right.
That's all.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Diane? You're welcome.
I just, through you, to the chief, now that we're buying different cars, are we going to have any problems with these strobe lights and everything else fitting all the other cars? I know we had an issue with this many years ago.
So we haven't had that issue because we've been able to purchase them, and we haven't found that just yet. So we'll be patient with it, but part of the issue is that we cannot get vehicles. The Explorers have been more and more difficult to get, so that's why we've gone to the Tahoe. I know that in years past, I've explained to this board that I normally would not order our new cruisers till November, so that we get them after the winter season. I cannot do that anymore. I will, once this is passed and we have the funding, have to order them probably in July, just because it is, but I more than likely will not get them until the same time of year. But that's just the trend that it's going on. And our vehicle, our supervisor that does all our vehicles, he has been in contact with our distributor, and he would like them ordered as soon as possible in order to get us them in the fiscal year.
All right, any other questions, comments from the committee on Article 48, police station upgrades? Any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 48, cruisers? Hearing none. Any comments or questions from the public? Please identify yourself for the record.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. You can't call it a public hearing if there's nobody from the public here. I'm going to start wearing my Big P t-shirt, I guess. Some of you who are longtime town meeting reps remember years back we tried to save a few bucks and we didn't buy the 3, and then we ended up having to buy the 5. I mean, pay now or pay later. And they're driven on all 3 shifts usually by at least 3 different drivers, if not more. It's not like your family car. And it's not also like TV. They're not roaring down the road. A lot of times the cruisers are just idling outside as the officer tries to deal with the public. And I've heard from my family nightmare stories, cars without reverse. In one case, a wheel actually came off. I mean, these are not tall tales. So we either pay now or we pay later.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments from the public on Article 48, police station upgrades, or Article 48, cruisers? Joel?
Very quick question, Chief. Any thoughts about going to electric vehicles, or is that too far down the line? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the answer, Chief McNamara. Thank you for the question, Joel. Any other questions or comments from the public? Article 48, police station upgrades. Hearing none. Any other questions or comments from the public? Article 48, or cruisers. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is, flip the page, fire and rescue. Thank you very much, Chief McNamara. Page 25.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Donna. Good job. Chief, don't make me kick you.
What if I go 5 minutes?
Yes. Hey, you sit there. Sit there.
In spite of time, I'm just thinking of asking them if they have questions, right?
Hey, you know that 118 budget they gave you? You know that 118 budget that they have for the subway? This is just the day. That's their internal one.
Yes, we do have a hard stop by 11 o'clock. So let's get rolling.
Yeah. Good evening, Michael Carroll, Fire Chief. In spite of that time, do you want to ask questions that you may have, and then, like, it seems like
You can do that if you want.
it's up to you. I can either highlight some things, or you can
Does
just
the
go right
committee have any questions or comments on the fire and rescue budget? We'll start with that.
Jump right in, yeah,
Okay.
sure.
No dramatic changes in here, right? You didn't.
No, we do have some. But what do you mean dramatic changes to the budget? Yeah. But not, I mean, so the first one would be, I'll just highlight, we're looking to do cancer screening on all our firefighters. It's a practice that's been done throughout the country in a few different places, which I did reach out to. what that means, and it's really inexpensive when as far as I think of it, it's $300 per firefighter. I think it's a real reasonable thing. Some real quick stories, whether it's a fire chief I talked to out in Arizona or even as close to chief duty over in Canton, they were able to detect cancers in a couple of their firefighters, and how that had impacted them. That those gentlemen were back to work within a year, coming off the heels of losing firefighter Little to occupational cancer. I feel like you never want to make money about it, because at the end of the day, it's just the right thing to do. But probably would have saved this town and the community, I would say, close to millions.
So what is the additional cost on that, I guess?
I put
20,000. 20,000, okay.
Yep. So it's a program that we're trying to start. It works really, really well, and that's like I said, Canton's doing it. This is on their third year doing it, it's the right thing to do again, and gets our people diagnosed and back to work a lot quicker. So it's a lot of savings to me.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Do you have any questions or comments from the committee on the fire rescue budget?
Chief, would that be like one of those full-body scans?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
an
what they do?
ultra-scan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Mark, you have a question?
On the box alarms line, you are asking for 30,000, but you've only spent 12 in 22. I was wondering why the increase on that.
Sure. So with the box alarm, what we've tried to do is I've set some policies in place where I've really changed the way in which boxes are, just so everybody knows, it's there's multiple times that the department can be called back. One was called a Box 55, where it was kind of a full callback of anybody and everybody, and that's when all apparatus were out of the building. I changed that to a long-term incident or a long sustaining incident, kind of used 20 minutes as my gauge. And through our experience, really, we know those once we arrive on scene and do a quick eval and understand the problem. So that's one. Box 5s are working fires. Box 7s are calls for working fires. And Box 33, which has really increased as of late, is when we go out of town for a fire, mutual aid response. What we noticed was back then, I don't know whether it was due to COVID or what it was, but less people were tending to come in on those boxes. There has been a spike, and it's kind of that safety net, because we don't like to leave the town stripped of emergency personnel.
And my other questions on the fire alarm cables and fixtures.
Sure.
You have it 5,000, and you haven't used any, and I was wondering what
Sure,
that's
so that,
for, and
Sure, so that probably needs to be updated. So there was about a year ago that the fire alarm truck transmission went. And it was a decision that I made to hold off on repairing it because we were really focused on COVID responses and basically dealing with that. So, sometimes decisions have to be made. I said, fire alarm, okay, we'll hold off on that. That is up and fixed now. And as a matter of fact, they've been held quite a bit now because we have to, first of all, we had wires on double poles, and no other industry will touch anybody else's wires, cables, or otherwise. So we've had to remove those, and then working with DOT, even as of recent, they're prepping to do the 138 corridor from Canton all the way up to Lincoln Street. So we have to remove all those wires as well. So they have been out there recently. They do also some other work that isn't necessarily. I don't think I'd really be. I could certainly tell you in executive session type thing, but I wouldn't want to publicly state. And that's not to hide anything, it's just, it's the nature of the
Yep.
work.
Okay.
We're decommissioning the system, and the hope is within the next several years that we'll be fully wireless and that we won't have the wired system throughout town, but we're well on our way to
Now you don't-
achieving that.
Do you have any more of the red boxes out? Or
So
no?
the red boxes are out, but they're
They're
radio-
wireless.
They're wireless, they're radio boxes,
Okay.
so it works on a radio system or transmission.
And then my last, well, it's not really a question, but more of how did the Nero's training go?
Went very well.
Very well.
Very well, yeah. No, it was actually, you know, that law has been one of those laws, as the state typically does, pushes through and then tells us how to, lets us figure out how we're going to not only train, the training's kind of laid out for us, but how we're going to implement it, pay for it. But we were able, through Deputy Brackett, who, you know, is our deputy of EMS, he was able to work out a real good deal with a private vendor, and I think it went really successful. Other than my wife being upset, I didn't ask her to attend.
I saw some of the pictures, so. But, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Adam, you have something?
Just one on the self-contained breathing apparatus is going from 10 to 24,000, but you also have an Article 49. What's the difference between those two?
So there is no real difference other than it. So our SCBAs, or self-contained breathing apparatus, that's the air we breathe. We go on when we go into hazardous environments. It's really about the cost. The cost has gone up to $12,000, which used to cost $6,000. I have quotes here. I can email them to you. There was recent of December of 22. I just shake my head at it. So that expense line has kind of been there because we've been replacing them as we go, but we're running into the issue of having, within the next year or two, 24 have to be replaced. They're good for 15 years, and they're all at the end of their cycle. So that's where you see that capital kick in. The other one, the expense line is used also. We send them a lot out to be repaired, so they have to be sent to Scott themselves to be repaired. So we kind of use that.
So there's not a duplication or anything
Correct.
like that?
This
there.
annual
It's in addition
hydrostatic
to.
testing, the Bauer compressum system that actually puts the clean air into the packs has to be maintained on a quarterly basis. So that's to maintain existing systems, and the capital is to purchase new systems to replace the expiring that have a 15-year lifespan.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Jess?
Hi, thanks. Question about staffing. So are you facing the same difficulties with hiring as the police department?
We are, we have a pretty significant turnover. We've had a lot of retired as of late, and we're filling. The problem does fall, it is tough to recruit. We use civil service as well. So that system itself, I believe, is antiquated. I think it really needs an overhaul. I was actually asked to sit in with civil service as to, new implementation of testing for deputies exams, the material, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they became more of an advisory committee rather than a test distributor. So there is, to answer your question, yes, we are. We put out a position for 3 firefighters. We got 320 names, and we had 4 people sign. So my goal and what I've been trying to do, working with the high school, is we take on an internship it's an internship, but we don't limit the amount of seniors on the last half of their senior year. Really, it's to introduce them of what this job entails, and what I like about it is my goal, and I've done this over our past few hires, is really to hire Stoughton kids. But the civil service process, if it's not explained and not understood, is really an unknown. And I even have the unfortunate dealing with military recruiters thinking that if kids get in there and they just get out, they'll get hired right away on the fire department, and we hire paramedics. So I've also been working with the union in the town to hire basic EMTs and then allow them a little bit more of a probationary period of 26 months, which typically is enough time to get through the paramedic program, a paramedic certificate, test out, and become a paramedic. So they still can work on, we have a paramedic basic waivers from the state that allow us to, to put an EMT on there while that firefighter's going through their education. So it's 26 months, it's still part of their job, and they sign a piece of paper. So, if they don't make it through the program, unfortunately, we have to let them go. But it's been pretty successful as of yet late, yeah.
Absolutely. 3 of the last 4 hires were Stoughton High graduates. I want to say the class of 2015, so they're in the mid-20s. Megan Hill, Jack Goldberg, and Joey Girolamo, and all 3 of them are outstanding. The 4th one, which was a non-Stoughton resident, he's outstanding also, but we were super excited to have 3, sons and daughters of Stoughtons come on the job.
Can I?
Sure.
Is it okay? I have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you for that. My other question has to do with chemicals and PFAS. So do you, are any of the chemicals you're using still loaded with PFAS? Is everything PFAS-free now moving forward?
I'm actually glad you asked that question because you had asked Phil McNulty. So as the rest of the country world was, we were kind of fooled by the whole PFAS thing ourselves. As a matter of fact, so much that it's in our gear. And that's what, they use it to make the inner shells of our gear. And they're trying to move away from that. The only thing they can't get away from is the stitching right now. But as you can imagine, as that gear heats up while you're in a fire, not only from the heat of the fire, but your body, PFAS to enter your system. And that's why they're finding high amounts of thyroid cancer. They were having a hard time. They were using smoke as the original only source, and it's not true. Same with foam. We were always told, oh, this foam is great, and it is. It works wonders. It sticks. It cools it down real quick. It kind of breaks that chain of the tetrahedron. So, but unfortunately, there were PFAS in it, and we had no idea. So we went to a PFAS-free foam. We're working to get PFAS-free gear, equipment. We really, that goes along with our whole cancer initiative. We really want to, and to think we were, using foam at car fires or any type of, and that was possibly going into storm drains and getting, so, again, we were fooled just as much as everybody else, yeah. But we have gotten away from it, and we continue to work to do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? John, you have something?
Very quick, hopefully. You have a footnote of overtime was reduced because of the addition of the 2 firefighters, yet it wasn't reduced. So I'm wondering, is there a mistake here?
It's reduced from the initial ask.
You have it in there for 629.
Right, so it was a reduced from the initial ask.
Which doesn't show in this sheet.
Yeah.
This is a revised, up-to-date sheet. The initial asked for a $65,000 increase in overtime.
Well,
When they
say reduced,
because
you
it
have
doesn't-
2 firefighters, and I'm looking at a higher number, so. Other than that, we have got a request to put 1 new firefighter in, and that would add additional funds for the.
One?
That's
holiday
2.
1 or
pay
2?
It's
and
2.
No, there were 2 in the budget.
Oh, yeah, if the cherry sheets, yes.
Another one.
Yes.
Yes, we asked for 3.
And that would add a salary in on the firefighters line, and it would also add a number in on the education incentive and the holiday pay. Just make a note of it so the committee's aware.
Oh, yeah.
Make note, it was on the sheet we got.
Just for historical context, we asked for 3. We were, we're trying to level the groups off to 15. One group has 15 members on it. The rest have 14. Back in, I think it was 2016, Chief Larissy had asked for that amount. The 3 or 4 were taken away.
You asked
I asked for 3.
originally.
No, I originally asked for 3 because we, You weren't here, Tom.
Okay, we asked for 6.
Okay, 7. All right, 4. Anyways, so they were taken away prior to town meeting, so I believe that he too wanted to level off to 15 members, so that's why, when we went to the select board, we kind of worked with Tom. I had worked with previously Mr. Tisdale to get to 3. Tom came back, can you do it with 2? I said, can do it with 2 in the hopes to get to 3. And so, yep.
It's directly related to the substantial increase in emergency response in the past 2 years. We went from 5,200 calls a year to 6,500 calls in the year 2022. It's an increase of 1,200 emergency responses a year in 2 years.
I don't know if we're going to get to your article tonight.
Okay.
But I just want to mention that the backup information we have does not agree with what's on your list, so you might want to revisit it. There's no cost on the cards, there's no cost on the
We're gonna get to Bob on the budget question, though. Bob, did
Oh,
you have
I
a-
didn't see his hand, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, just real quick here. So, as far as billing and collections, there's an increase of about $22,000 this year. Are you still with the same billing company?
So was that reduced back down? That was our ask.
4%.
What's that?
Pro EMS.
Yeah, so that's pro EMS, so it's based off what they collect.
Okay,
So we were trying to, because there's been such an increase in what we brought in for revenue,
yeah.
we were trying to meet that there. I think it was, was it reduced, it was reduced back down to 85,000, correct?
Yeah, so it's the same billing company that you bought
Same
in.
one, yeah.
And,
This one was coastal at 55,000. They were a flat rate. The new company is 4% of what we bring in.
okay,
With the old company, we brought in 1.9 million. We're on pace to bring in 2.7 million this year. So
Okay.
there is an increase in us paying Pro EMS for their services. But
Okay.
we're bringing in almost $1 million additional dollars in ambulance billing revenue for the general fund.
Okay.
You said it was
Directly in the general fund.
EMS?
Pro EMS, yeah.
EMS, that's
Okay.
right.
that was my second question too, so thank you for answering that. But, so is that a contract that has to go out each year, or is it?
Oh, well, yes, I guess they don't like do a 3-year, but yes, it's pretty
Okay.
much.
And then the other question is, as far as going out and doing, any type of fees are concerned, are you increasing anything as far as that's concerned, if you go to a house or anything?
No, we really haven't addressed those. I was looking at those to look at other ways of means of revenue. Right now, until we kind of, our goal is as a town to move over to, online permitting and whatnot, we may see an increase with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, that was it.
Any other questions or comments from the committee on the fire and rescue budget? Any other questions or comments from the public on the fire and rescue budget? Please identify yourself for the record, Cynthia.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I know that you folks are busy, but tonight on the news, the firefighters are suing the National Firefighter Association to get the PFAS out of their equipment.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the public on the fire and rescue budget? Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to get to that right now, I think. We're gonna try to rock and roll here, but let's rock and roll. Article 49, fire capital, CAD software, $55,000, command vehicles, $170,000, firefighting protective gear, $70,000, self-contained breathing apparatus, $225,000. Do those numbers match up?
Flipped.
Okay, thank you.
Firefighting, personal protective equipment are 225,000.
Okay, maybe it's a typo on our end then.
Firefighter.
Okay.
SCBA is 70,000. That's self-contained. Roger that.
All right, so they might have been a typo on the thing. It's a typo on the article, right?
Out to Reggie, and
bring
she
that
said
up to
bring it up.
Okay, well, I'm glad we ironed that out. Do we have any questions from the?
Well, wait a minute, then, what you sent us does not give us, I mean, you told us about vehicles and you told us about software, but there's no backup and there's no dollar amounts given for either one of them.
I apologize.
Vehicles are 85,000, two vehicles, 85,000 apiece for a total of 170,000. The firefighting software is federally and state mandated National Fire Incident Reporting System, and that's for 55,000. That also includes personnel, payroll, fire prevention files, training files, and also the federally and state mandated.
If you can send us the information.
Absolutely.
If you have quotes or whatever, you can send it over, that'd be great.
If you look at the backup you sent us, if you can just update it a little bit.
I apologize.
Get it in.
The software is something that I've always wanted to get to, and I did real quick when Mr. Tisdale asked me for a number. I reached out to the rep that I've been dealing with, and I said, just give me the encompassing how you think it would fit with a 60 plus member department, and that's what they gave me, but I will get a written quote on that.
Great, thank you. We've ironed those numbers out.
And the numbers that are in the article are incorrect, because it says it gives one thing for the equipment for two.
So the life safety equipment for 295, 225 is firefighting PPE, 70,000 is SEBA. Correct, yes, sir.
That makes more sense. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, do we have any questions or comments on Article 49 from the committee, Fire Capital, CAD software, command vehicles, firefighting protective gear, self-contained breathing apparatus? We'll take all of them bundled together. Mark, you have a question?
Yes, why are we going to pickup trucks?
Because, so, what we found is back in 2000, I think 14, they went to the Ford Fusions. They have been a headache since day one. They do not work, obviously, well in the winter. It's just a front-wheel drive vehicle. They both have 120-something thousand miles on them, so they need to be replaced anyways. And so we made a decision. There's a big push in the industry to go to those pickups instead of the expeditions that we typically use for our C5, our shift commander, as well as our training. The pickups, the way they do them now, are so much better and so much conducive to our line of work, And so when I tried to use the FP1, the small fusions during emergencies, they really did. They were rendered useless. So we had to assign them to another car. It was so I think it's time to move them along anyways, along with the vehicle rotation. But this fits better. Every department that I know of that I feel is a good department is going to the pickups for. It makes you can utilize them so much better nowadays.
Oh, I agree. Because we don't have a breakdown of the things, are these also going to be tow package?
Yes.
And are you going to have a
We're seriously considering
thing
the
in the front, too?
all-electric lightning vehicle also. We're looking very hard at that. We think that's the future. We want to put that infrastructure in all our fire stations, and we believe that those incident command vehicles, by the time the chief and I are retired, most of them, that is the direction we're going. That's the direction the industry's going. And those Ford Lightnings, they actually work as generators. There's actually a component of them to where if you lost power in your home and you had one of these Ford Lightning pickups, it could provide power for 3 days for your home. So while it's on a scene providing incident command and crisis management, it's also providing electric power that's needed on the scene for lighting, for electric equipment that we use now. So we're trying to forward project with a lot of our future purchases in capital.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you much.
You have a question, Adam?
Yeah, it was just about the Lightning, why Lightning versus a regular F-150?
So, I mean, the reality is, we don't even know whether we'll be able to get the Lightning. I mean, right
I would
now,
imagine.
Context,
It's a waiting list.
There are huge deficits.
Yeah.
But we thought, I feel like they've been out there, they've been not their first year. I don't think that's as much of a risk. If you ask me to get an electric fire engine, I will not right now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so we thought we'd shoot for it. Our goal is to, help the community move towards that direction, but,
Yeah.
it'll have to be tried and true.
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was their first run through of the lightnings. I would have thought they'd have to work out a lot of the kinks before. Okay.
Do we have any more questions or comments from the committee on any of the fire capital on here? CAD software, command vehicles, firefighter protective gear, self-contained breathing apparatus.
Just send us the details for the stuff we don't have. Thank you.
Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Article 49, fire capital, CAD software, command vehicles, firefighting protective gear, self-contained breathing apparatus. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda. Any other matters?
None.
Hearing none.
Just a
Next
real
item on the
quick-
agenda.
Just a real quick question. Do we have any more budgets left? What's left to do next week?
The 23rd.
Well, what budgets are coming up? Do we have DPW left?
There's still,
Yeah.
Is that
Probably.
the only one left?
We would have to double check.
I'd have to look at the,
Okay.
let's get this motion.
Next
made.
item on the agenda.
I make a motion that we.